Hey, buddies, Potato Whiskey here, and welcome to my Exploration Age reaction video. I have been a little bit busy with some personal life stuff, so it has been about 20 days since it's been released when I'm actually recording this, but we are finally getting around to it. Let's check out the Exploration Age.
Hello, Civ fans, and welcome to our Exploration Age live stream. I am Sarah, your community manager. We are so excited. We have a lot to show you today, including a new Civ and a new first look for a leader. We're going to be diving into some very exciting Exploration Age mechanics, and also we're going to be taking a few questions in chat, so be sure to leave them in chat and we will try and tackle as many as we can. I am joined by Ed Beach, creative director.
Hi, Ed. Hi, Carl.
Harrison, our lead designer, who just recently had a baby bearing.
Congratulations, Carl.
And a break from paternity leave.
Yep.
So a couple PSAs for you guys. Starting with, we are extremely excited to announce we're doing our first ever Civ 7 Twitch drop. So all you have to do for our Twitch viewers that are watching us is to link your Firaxis and 2K account together. Watch for at least 15 minutes, but we hope you stick around for longer. If you do that, then you get a very cool Exploration Age banner, which shows up in places like the pause menu and the multiplayer lobby, so just a really cool way to customize your profile. And lastly, we have a super cool shout out to make. We've got a exciting collector's edition for the game, so if you like physical items, be sure to check out the collector's edition. Some really cool things there. An awesome clock design, a scout figure, very exciting items, and I think even a really cool coin that you can get in the collector's edition too.
Yeah, the collector's coin has a reference to the 4 different types of victories in the game. So if you are feeling economic, militaristic, scientific, or cultural, you can spin the coin around to represent exactly what you're going for that day.
That's awesome, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about what that looks like in game too, which is exciting. So when you order the collector's edition, or if you want to check out your Exploration Age banner from this Twitch drop, just a reminder that Civ 7 comes out February 11th for PC and console, which is super, super exciting to announce. And you can play as early as February 6th if you pre-order. So definitely some exciting stuff to come. Ed, tell me a little bit about why you're so excited for the Exploration Age live stream.
This is the live stream I've really been waiting for. This is when we really show how sort of the normal progression of an empire can turn in a different direction because of the new age of history that we're opening up and into as we get into the Exploration Age right after our age transition. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start out by showing the empire that we created through Antiquity. It's just a few turns before the Exploration Age is going to dawn on us. And we'll walk you through exactly how we got to this point, but really show you some of those cool Exploration Age details about how the gameplay changes as you uncover the other half of the map.
Yeah, it's going to be really amazing. And you're even rocking the Exploration Age t-shirt, it looks like, which is awesome. I know you've been really excited for this.
Okay, sorry. I was screwing around trying to get my camera to show up, but I couldn't get it to show up, so whatever. We'll do this without face cam.
And Carl too.
Yeah.
As am I. So just also a quick reminder, just remember that when we show off these details, these builds are still work in progress, so just keep that in mind for us. And without further ado, here is our new first look for a leader that you guys might remember from the past.
At colonialism by pairing Isabella with her home Civ, Spain.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused as to what's happening. What the hell?
Yeah, it's going to be really, which is awesome. Mind for us. And without further ado, here is our new first look for a leader that you guys might remember from the past.
At colonialism by pairing Isabella.
Okay, I think something went wrong with the stream. Okay. Oh, wow. They did a little scrub back there. All right. Isabella of Spain. Oh, man. Woo.
Colonialism by pairing Isabella with her home.
Troubleshooting just a little bit on the first look video. Why don't we just take a moment again, Ed? You have been super excited about this Exploration Age live stream.
God, nothing ever goes right. Like, no matter how much you prepare, things will always go wrong.
The team is really excited to show off too.
I love production.
Note to people is that I was talking just a moment ago about how you pursue the 4 different pathways through the game, either militaristic, scientific, cultural, or economic. And we have talked in the previous live streams, the Antiquity stream, we showed how, for instance, the cultural pathway during Antiquity is all about building world wonders.
Yeah.
So just a reminder to people that as we launch into a new age, we're going to be talking about different ways to make progress in those 4 areas.
That's quite interesting.
Those are what we call our legacy paths. We have 4 unique legacy paths that are very tightly tied to the way the exploration age unfolded historically. And so deep diving into those is going to be really interesting for people.
And speaking of deep dives, I think we are ready to check out that first look now, so let's go.
Troubleshooting commenced. Let's go. Isabella.
Su reino se acreciente sobre la tierra.
Queen Isabella ruthlessly consolidated Spain's power through the Spanish Inquisition and Reconquista. Then expanded her empire's global reach into the New World. This means that she gets along well with anyone who doesn't take what is rightfully hers. In other words, everything. As a relentless expansionist,
Ooh, that is so cool. They're bringing back the Civ 5 thing where they synergize with natural wonders. So you get 300 gold every time you discover a natural wonder, and this bonus is doubled if the natural wonder is in distant lands. That is sick. That is awesome.
Isabella's discoveries and conquests abroad reap rich benefits at home.
Oh, damn. 100% tile yields from natural wonders. That is insane. Holy crap. So not only, oh my God, this is like the Civ 5 Isabella. That is sick. Okay, that's a really awesome. I'm really excited to play them.
Command Isabella's massive naval fleets to claim and defend territory near and far.
What does 50% gold towards purchasing naval units mean? I don't really understand what that means. Does that mean naval units are 33% cheaper? The way that that's phrased is very confusing to me, and I don't understand. -1 gold for maintenance for naval units makes sense to me, but the gold towards purchasing naval units confuses me.
Without breaking the bank. Capitalize on all that colonialism by pairing Isabella with her home civ, Spain, in the exploration age, for extra gold towards converting towns into cities.
Ooh.
Or choose a different path all your own. But whatever you
Oh
build,
man. God, this
remember
game is so
to build
gorgeous,
something
dude.
you believe in.
Build something you believe in, baby. We're on that Civ 7 hype train. Choo-choo! Let's go.
So that was our first look for Isabella. We hope you enjoyed it, and be sure to check out the game guide for Isabella after the stream ends. Ed, can you tell us a little bit about why the team wanted Isabella to make a return to Civ 7?
So Isabella is a leader that's sort of near and dear to my heart. We just saw in that video the final wonder that was being built at the end was El Escorial, which is outside Madrid. Took a trip to Spain when my daughter was studying abroad there. Visited places like El Escorial, but also Granada, where Ferdinand and Isabella are buried. And it was just a really cool, deep look into Spanish history and all the different cultures that have come together to form Spain as it is now. We're actually, you go there, you get a sense of, oh, well, there's a lot of Roman heritage, but there's Greek heritage, Visigothic heritage, Moorish heritage. You see all those cultures combining into making up what Spain is today, and we'll see that in game as well. Now, we came home from that trip, and not too much long after that, my wife and I got 2 new cats. We happened to name the cats Ferdinand and Isabella.
Oh, that's really cute.
Isabella is actually our cat that loves to sit on a civilization pillow. And so, there she is.
Oh, little
Probably at
Isabella.
home
That's
watching the
adorable.
live stream on her Civ 6 pillow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a personal.
Look at Isabella.
That's amazing.
Aw.
It looks like she's ready to go.
When can we get the
loves,
Isabella the cat
watching,
leader mod?
live stream, so.
That's what I want to see.
You've even made a board game that features Isabella.
There's also a Spanish Ferdinand and Isabella board game that I worked on that came out about a year ago. So yeah,
Nice.
very, very much tied into sort of the historical.
I really
period
wish
that,
I would love to
I'm
start a
really
board
fascinated
gaming
with.
channel where I
That's
play
awesome.
like
And I know a lot of
board
our
games
Civ players that
with a
have been
group of
with
people.
us from our older games too are probably excited to see her make a return to the game too.
So I think one thing we should talk about as well in terms of a return is the bonuses that were chosen for Isabella. Carl had a hand in coming up with what those should be. I think it was a discussion that you were having, and you want to go through that with us?
Yeah, so we have a whole content design team, and we were working on Isabella's design and what that should look like. And Matt Beach, another content designer, and I were
Matt,
both
hi,
enamored
Matt.
with
Good
the
to see
Civ
you.
5 version of Isabella. We thought that she was a ton of fun with her Natural Wonder
Super
gameplay.
agree.
The fact that you got gold from discovering them, the fact that you doubled or increased the yields that they provided. So we wanted to bring that back. But we
I love
also
that they're
wanted
bringing her
to
back.
Sort of address the feast or famine bit of that. If you didn't have a Natural Wonder, you didn't really benefit from her abilities
Yeah.
at all. So we've added this naval unit portion so that she can have a really large fleet to sail the world and discover the natural wonders.
I like
so
that.
Then she
There's a sort of natural inbuilt
That's
synergy
awesome.
there.
Well, let's see her in action. Let's go ahead and load up the game.
Oh my god, just look how gorgeous this game is, dude. Holy shit. Like, God. It's so beautiful. Look at those sheep, dude. I want to pet those sheep. Welsh people look away, okay? New Zealanders too. God, look fucking gorgeous.
And really quick, while we're here, let's just talk for a second about the Exploration Age and what it represents. I know we're starting off here in Antiquity. We're going to show that transition moment, but just for everybody wondering, what can we expect from Exploration?
So exploration is the time where, starting in the Middle Ages, but kind of progressing forward from that, a lot of different world powers unlock the technology to, sail across the oceans. And initially, that was a pretty dangerous endeavor. You'll see how that works in our game, that it's not the safest thing to do right at the beginning of the Exploration Age. But the key sort of game and sort of history-changing revolution was that now you could trade with trade partners that were across distant seas. There were exotic goods from across the world that would be coming back home, and that just had a tremendous impact on the economies of the world, on the different types of trade networks that were being formed. There was a lot of contention in terms of how Europeans were going to get to the Orient to get spices. So it really changed just the whole geopolitical situation in the world. And we wanted to represent that in the game by having just a whole different set of gameplay mechanics roll into our game. And so the civilization experience does change quite a bit when you get in the Exploration Age.
I'm really interested to see how they change the gameplay, because I keep saying this, but like the rubber meets the road when we actually get to see and play around with the gameplay mechanics. One thing I would love is if there was a reverse colonization scenario where your continent turns out to be the one that gets colonized by the other continent. Like, that would be sick. So I really hope that they've put that into the game as a chance. Even if it was only like 25% of the time that happens, I still think that would be awesome. Imagine being this sort of... I think it's an interesting story to tell the story of oppression. And it's not exactly a power fantasy, but I still think it would be cool.
Got it. Well, we're here in Antiquity. We're starting as Greece. As we kind of move around the map a bit, what can we expect from sort of the game settings, first of all, too, that we're looking at here?
Well, right now we are at 3 turns or so left in this age. In every single age, you have an age progress meter, and up here we have our age progress is set to 98%. So we're very close to the end of the age. And I'll go ahead and get some gameplay started.
I still prefer the Civ 6 UI, but this
game
UI is
settings
starting to
question,
grow on
because
me.
This was actually a game that I played. So I played this out to get us ready for the stream. The thing I wanted to do was make sure that we could really show in detail.
I think the minimap
turns
needs
at
some
the very
upgrades.
Beginning of the Exploration Age, so I left this at standard speed rather than going to the quick speed that we often use for a lot of our streams. We have this on a map where there are 4 players on our homeland continent that we've been fighting.
I do
with
really like the
Antiquity.
units keep like
We'll go through
battling
which of
with
those
each other
players
over a
are doing
turn.
well, which of those have some challenge. In terms of the difficulty setting, the setting is what we call Sovereign. It's the new name for the Emperor difficulty level. That's one below.
Oh, I miss
we wanted the
Emperor.
AI to keep up with what an experienced Civ 7 player is capable of, but not put it on one of those really tricky difficulty settings at the top.
Emperor is, in my
And,
opinion, the
there's
most
one
fun
AI
difficulty level.
opponent, Xerxes, who has had a really tough time in this age. We boxed him in very effectively between Ashoka and my empire, so he's behind. But the other two AI civs are keeping right up in terms of where they're at.
That happens in
both,
Civ 6 too. It's a classic engine bug.
like science
Sometimes you
development,
just,
culture
your
development, everything
camera
like that.
spins
I've
off
gotta
into the
say,
middle of
Xerxes
nowhere.
does not look happy right now.
He should be, given the situation. Carl's showing it right now, how his two cities are between this eastern edge of our empire.
Wow, he really
which,
got boxed
is
in.
mountainous, has a few choke points, and you can see how far to the west here Ashoka has come over with his empire. So Xerxes is militarized with building walls around his cities to try to defend what he can. He has also taken one of his settlers and dropped them all the way down in the southern end of our continent here, and created a city on this Naval River inlet into a lake. So we'll see some stuff later in our stream about what he does with the city, and it's actually very, very interesting.
Okay, Carl, so what are we looking at here? What's going on?
So towards the end of an age, as I was talking about previously with the 98% age progress that we've got right now, you do start to see what's called a crisis. And the crisis sort of accelerates the conflict that occurs at the end of the game. And the crisis that we have in this particular game is a barbarian invasion, which causes barbarian camps to spawn around the world. These are completely hostile units that will attack us, and we can see we have one spawned right here near us. But the other
I do
thing
like
that
the
occurs
barbarian
with,
invasion
a crisis is you're forced to pick what are called crisis policies, and these are unique social policies that have negative effects. So if we come over here to this tab, we're able to see the crisis policies that we have here. I'll
Ooh,
let you talk a little bit
banditry is
about these.
painful. Inferior
So
tactics is
this
painful
is,
too.
A reflection of this crisis has been going on for a while. You can see on the progress bar here that it has 3 different stages to it, and we're well into the 3rd stage. As each stage is sort of unlocked, the situation gets worse. You have to adopt even more of these crisis policies. So I picked 4 out of the 6 that I thought were least harmful to me, but you can see based on the names of them, I'm hiring mercenaries in from the barbarians to try to fight off the other clans of barbarians. This was a tactic that Rome used late in the
I do like how thematic
Roman
these
Empire
cards are.
to try to keep Western Rome alive. I'm offering tribute to them to try to pacify them a little bit. I have some commanders within my army that are rebelling, but somehow I managed to keep things together. And so that's a good example of some of those crisis policies that you have to live with.
And these affect all players equally. So the AI is also affected by the crisis and has to select their own crisis policies to deal with the problem at the same time. Where the camps themselves spawn is a little bit more organic and random. So this is right smack in between 2 of our own settlements, but the others might have spawned next to somebody else's city and could be affecting them.
I just finished dealing one with a camp in the northwest corner of the empire. That's no longer there, but you can tell, this crisis plays out over a number of turns. I have an army that just came back from clearing out the camp up there, and basically any little nook or cranny in the middle of your empire is a place where they might slip in an encampment, and you're going to have to deal with it. So there's people who like to sort of forward settle.
That's very
other
cool.
Players and spread out. There's some downsides to that here.
We have a question coming through. Wingston GER asks, so is loyalty no longer a thing?
Loyalty, I'll just say that there is a system very similar to loyalty. It's not a system that's on all the time, but there are 3 different crises.
Ooh, that's interesting. Having loyalty come into the play when you have a crisis is kind of an interesting idea.
That loyalty, sort of like those dark ages in the Rise and Fall.
That's super interesting.
Hit you really hard. That's what that crisis is about.
Yep. We do have a couple of other things to show off in game here. Right now I have one of Greece's unique civilian units selected. They get a special type of great person called a Logios. And here we have Hypatia, who is going to grant additional science on a library building. So we've stationed her there, and I'll go ahead and activate her. We'll talk a little bit more about great people here in a moment, but before we do, I also want to choose our Civic. We have Future Civic available because we've completed all of the other base Civics that we have to choose from, and Future Civic has a couple of things available on it, but most notably of which is it adds age progress.
That's super
So
interesting.
This is a way for you to accelerate through the age a little bit faster and get to the end of that crisis if it's really bothering you and you're advanced enough in either tech or
Super
or civics,
interesting.
because Future Tech also does the
It's
same
also
thing.
an interesting tactic in a multiplayer game when you can like pull a lever to control when the game's going to end. sort
That
of
is
maybe
really
lock in your
interesting.
lead.
You basically put people
That's
on a
cool thing
timer.
to be able to do in a multiplayer game as well.
I don't
Fireball
love the
4585
resource micromanagement
asks,
minigame.
Does everyone have the same crisis?
They do, and you can imagine, it would be a little crazy to have these barbarian camps spawning in between players, and oh no, wait, they're only going after one player. We want the world to feel like, it's beset by barbarians or plague and disease or whatever, and have that be a sort of common problem that everyone faces together.
That's a reasonable choice.
Also makes sense in a multiplayer setting that it's sort of evenly distributed around.
Right.
So I
It
think
could be
we've reached
interesting
the
for
end
different
of
empires to have
Antiquity
different
here. We have a
crises,
narrative choice
but
available, so if we select that, we get
reasonable.
this pop-up talking about the world is broken, and this is to deal with the barbarian crisis that we've been sort of combating over the last several turns, and the age of Antiquity is now ending.
So we're going to click on this. It lets you finish your turn just in case there's a little bit of housekeeping that you want to take care of. We'll show it in a few seconds sort of, what the empire looks like on the other side of the age transition. But keep in mind that the type of military units and their position does get preserved. They sort of get reset back to a sort of a home base into one of their towns or cities nearby, or with a commander nearby. But even those little battles you have at the end of the turn might affect, in the very last turn, might affect the composition of your army going forward. So we've tried to set it up so the last couple turns of the ages still, carry forward and are impactful to you in the next age.
And
that is a genuine
speaking of things
criticism
that
that has
carry
come up about
forward,
Civilization many times, is that sort of turns towards the end of a game, or in this case the ends of an age, are less important than turns towards the start of an age. So I'm interested to see how they try to deal with that problem.
or don't carry forward. We have one user asking, Anthony, do crisis policies last the remainder of the game or just the length of the crisis?
So you'll see after we come through transition that your whole government resets and all the policies are going to be refreshed. The crisis policies are not active when there's not a crisis going on. So the crisis policy slots will be cleared. You won't have any of those at the beginning of the age. What is very cool is that the civilization unique policies, I think, Carl, you want to bring those up, and so we can look at which ones we have as Greece. So anyone that has the sort of feather quill type of icon here, those are our three Greek unique policies. Unique policies we typically call traditions.
Traditions,
And
okay.
traditions carry
Tradition.
forward with you. So those are going to be the ones that we start the next stage with. I guess we have one slotted and three available.
Yep.
So you can see it's really like a tactical choice to pick who that Antiquity Civ is when you think about
it all matters, and all those choices sort of stack, and by
Right.
the end of the game, your empire is a conglomeration of all those choices you've made up until then.
That's a really cool idea, that you
ready
might
to
pick an
advance.
Antiquity age civilization because you want a particular
So
tradition
the
in
first
the
thing you
modern
see
age.
is
Like,
a
maybe.
cool video.
All right, I'm interested. My only problem with cool videos is that they're only cool once.
As soon as we
As soon as we
one
grow
last
the city.
notification.
I must have had something carry over.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's see it.
Yeah, we'll let AI take their turns,
There we go.
and now the age is coming.
I do like that animation. That animation is really nice. It's pretty.
Strong trade came of strong relations. And Greece
It's a
flourished
nice
because it
animation.
chose its partners well.
But I think these are only cool once. Really. It's neat. I will give it that. It is really neat.
So after the cool painting and narration by Gwendolyn Christie, we get to a series of screens that sort of recap the age for you. So the first one lists out all the progress we've made from the different legacy paths that we've been proceeding down, and they're going to unlock lots of points that we can be spending at age transition. We'll be deep diving into how we're going to spend them in just a second, so we won't read through all those right now. I think the one I want to go to immediately is the age ranking screen, because that's going to show us in each of those 4 legacy paths who the big players were that were competing with us.
So they did Silk Roads.
Wonders. We were not able to finish that legacy path and get to 7 wonders of the ancient world.
Not bad.
We also were not able to get to 12 towns. We didn't. I didn't really play this out militaristically. I was trying to build just a.
They did an amazing
cool
job
Greek empire
doing the Silk Roads one, though.
Through that path, but the last 2, we do see people that finish those. The Great Library legacy path, where you're trying to get 10 codices. Collected and displayed in your libraries. Both Hatshepsut and Ashoka finished that path. And then the Silk Road path, where you're collecting resources and allocating them to your settlements, I was able to finish that one. So based on that, we can go to the next tab, which is the Legacies report, and you'll see that there are bars sort of 1, 2, or 3 segments in length based on how many of those milestones you achieve.
That's really cool.
Basically, we're pretty much tied with Hatshepsut right now.
So they got 8 legacies from doing so well in the age.
In very different areas.
Xerxes did not do well.
Didn't do nearly as much with economics as we did, but she did a lot more with science. And we're neck and neck with her, and Ashoka's only a hair behind us. This is the type of recap you have at the end of the age. It also shows you, to some extent, who's going to be strong, kind of get that initial jump start in various areas. We're going to have to assume that Hatshepsut and Ashoka will probably proceed a little bit faster than we do in science in the next age.
Interesting.
Right, and I think
so. The legacies will dictate how quick off the jump, how much tempo a player has in a particular direction. That's kind of an interesting idea.
Some of our eagle-eyed players might spot is that little reference to legends too. I think is on some of those screens as well. This is something that we're going to talk about more in the future. Essentially, the team wanted a way to reward our players for playing a certain leader a lot. We've got players that like to play these leaders over and over, and there's a really cool system involved there that we'll speak more to in the future. But let's head on back into the game.
Legends? Wait, view Legends report. Oh, interesting. I'll be curious about that.
So we have moved on through the transition, and we have picked our next civilization.
I know, exciting stuff.
Okay, so we're looking at Spain here. 15% goal towards converting a town to a city, or 30% in distant lands. Now, I have to assume distant lands is anything that's not in your starting continent. 30% production towards El Escorial, which is Spain's unique wonder. They have the Tercio, the Conquistador, the Plaza, +2 gold in the settlement, so for every settlement in distant lands. So you want to settle other continents a lot. Must be built in the homelands adjacent to the coast. So there's homelands and distant lands. Interesting. That's really, really interesting.
Spain revealed.
Yes. So we got a double reveal here, really. Spain is who we're going to be playing as. Those eagle-eyed fans that Sarah was just talking about are probably looking on the right-hand side of our screen.
They catch everything.
Ooh, unlocks Mexico in the modern age. Oh, dude, so Mexico's in the game. Mexico confirmed. Let's go.
And there is a modern age civ that has also been just briefly mentioned here.
Yes. So more on that civ to come in the future too. But Ed and Carl, tell me a little bit about why Isabella and Spain work so well together.
So Isabella, as we were discussing earlier, is all about sort of distant lands gameplay. While she gets advantages on any natural wonder in the game, she gets twice as much gold when she discovers a natural wonder in the distant lands, and then her naval bonuses really help her expand and explore the world once we reach this exploration age. Spain is also all about distant lands gameplay. They get tons of bonuses towards them, most notably of which is their unique civilian unit, the Conquistador.
Ooh, the Conquistador looks awesome, actually.
Earlier, this is a great person that's unique to Spain specifically, and they're really all about distant lands gameplay.
I'm kind of interested about the way that they changed great people. I really like what they've done.
And we've gotten a lot of questions ever since the game was announced about how the progression from one civ to another works. You can see in the middle of our screen that there are check boxes marked off to show players why Spain was an option for them. You could have played as Rome. We didn't do that. We chose Greece. But since there were a lot of Greek colonies along the Mediterranean coast of Spain, even in the area of Valencia that's been hit by the floods recently, and so our hearts go out to those people right now. They've had a tough time in Spain there recently. But Greek and Roman settlements are a huge part of the Spanish heritage. Or obviously, if you play as Isabella, who's the leader who historically led Spain through some of their best moments, those are all. Any one of those is all that you need to be able to unlock Spain and choose them as your second civ in the exploration age.
Well, let's see Spain and Isabella in action.
And as we load in here, we'll let Gwen and Christy talk. I think she's got some dialogue
We gotta
here.
let her talk.
Undaunted by the ocean's expanse, Spain will follow the Song of Gold to unknown lands and make them its own.
I do want to talk about briefly what distant lands means. We keep using that term. There are two terms that are really important to exploration age, and that's homelands and distant lands. Homelands is the landmass that you start on, the continent that you begin the game on, that we saw already when we were playing as Greece in the Antiquity age. Distant lands is everywhere else. It's all other land masses that you are unable to reach in the Antiquity age that you get to start to explore and cross oceans to find once you reach this new age.
And let's talk a little bit about map generation, because that homeland distant land divide is very important in map generation. So the homeland landmass that's generated on this map, this is a new type of map that's brand new for Civ 7. It is called Terra Incognita, and it generates a very traditional sort of continents map type of homeland area for players to start on. So that's going to feel very familiar to them. But what's cool about the Terra Incognita map is the other half of the world, you don't know what that looks like. And it's not going to necessarily be a second continent-shaped landmass. There are variable die rolls that happen when that map
That's
is
interesting.
that determine
the second
how
continent
watery that
could be very, very
area
different to
is,
the first
and
continent.
So there are possibilities from it looks just like the homelands to something that's sort of pockmarked with bays and lakes and all sorts of waterways that are fun to explore. So we'll have to see as we proceed with our gameplay as to what that other half of the map is going to look like.
All right, let's go ahead and choose our legacies and get this exploration age started.
Yep.
So this age transition legacy stuff, this is the stuff that I'm most interested in. I'm also pretty interested in the fact that their science has dropped by about half since they transitioned,
So
as has a whole bunch of their other
bonuses that
yields,
were,
like dropped
achieved
significantly.
during their Antiquity run. You can see in the top middle of the screen that we have different points in different areas. One wildcard point, and then the other points are based on how many milestones we ticked off on the legacy pass. I saw that we had a question from chat about should you go just heavy in one area or should you diversify? I think it's all a matter of sort of what your long-term strategy is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, I'm just gonna pick a bunch of science civs and go through the game that way and try to win a science victory as quickly as I can. Okay, then you've made your decision then. Here, I knew we were gonna really deeply explore exploration age gameplay. I wanted to be set up with an economic powerhouse. That's why I made sure I finished the Silk Roads path, and then I got as far as I could on the other ones. But that's something for everyone to explore, and sort of it's just whatever fits your play style.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, if you have the capacity to, it looks like it really does benefit you too to kind of get these
It's
points.
tricky to get all of the milestones. There have been a few times that people on the development team have done it, and they're like, I was so proud of my run last weekend or last week because I was able to get all of them,
Right.
but it's not easy to do.
So what are we working with here?
So we've got one military point to spend, so let's go ahead and grab a militaristic attribute. Then we have 2 cultural points to spend, and I think we built a lot of wonders, so I think we can go ahead and pick up.
Wondrous heritage is really, really cool. Although I'm really tempted by the cultural attribute points. It really depends on like what do those things actually do for you. This is where it'd be nice to be able to look at your like your attributes in this screen, so you could be like, oh, okay, do I want an attribute point or do I want a wondrous heritage? I mean, heritage looks pretty good.
Notice there are attribute points in all of these areas. Those are sort of the basic things that you unlock for just getting to that first milestone.
Also, I really like the Confederation idea. You lose 2 settlement limit, but you gain 100% influence towards initiating and progressing diplomatic actions that target independent powers and city-states. I like that it has a trade-off. That's a really cool idea.
But if you get to the second or third milestones, that's when these more powerful legacy cards sort of become available to you to...
It's interesting that they consider Wondrous Heritage as a more powerful legacy, when in my mind, like, diplomatic and cultural attribute points are extremely powerful. Passive benefits are really strong. So I'm curious to see, like, what the cultural attribute point tree looks like.
To trigger an effect that not everyone else in the game is going to have access to.
And if you finish Legacy Path, you get a Golden Age card you can select.
Right, so we'll see that when we get down to the economic choices.
And this card here, I believe, is from our Crisis, if I'm not mistaken. So what Crisis you interact with might determine some gameplay when you enter the next age.
That's really cool. I like that there's going to be some differences.
We're going to pick that. Chat was asking, will settling natural wonders in distant lands help the homeland?
Yes. So let me go ahead and select these.
Oh, wow. So we've got Master Caravaneer, which is +2 gold for every trade route in Antiquity, but it's just 12 gold per turn for this entire era. Silk Road's Golden Age is kind of interesting. All of your cities from the previous age will remain cities. And then Isabella Exploration Legend. Ooh, so this might be a new card that they unlocked like through leader progression. That's kind of an interesting idea. I don't know how I feel about that.
Here, don't want to get too distracted. But yes, you do get bonuses for the wonders that you've selected. We are going to move our capital here. I want to do that.
Go to
Chalkis. So this will upgrade that to a city.
Yeah, they're they're skimming over the legends of Isabella. But that's interesting. The interesting idea of like losing 10% gold to gain 15% food. I like that's kind of an interesting trade-off. I'm curious to see how those would play out.
Make it our new capital, renamed Madrid. Let's confirm those. Oh, I have one more. We'll do
a wild card, yeah.
We'll do a cultural
whichever you
point.
want to pick.
So the wonders that you settle on will benefit your homelands as well.
They were definitely avoiding talking about those legend cards, trying not to draw attention to them, and trying to not keep them on screen for as long as possible, which I can appreciate is difficult to do. Like, my heart goes out to them when there's something you're not supposed to talk about, and it's just like, oh, there it is. That's the thing we can't talk about. Hey-oh, and you don't want to draw attention to it? Like, damn. And here's me reacting to it, being like, yo, dude, look at that thing he don't want us to see. Look at it.
If you settle on a wonder that is, let's say, culture or science yields, those are empire level yields and will just add to your science and culture progression as normal. If you are settling on a wonder that's, say, giving food or production, and you have a town, then towns can send yields back to your other cities, so you'll be able to send those yields back to the cities on your homelands, or if you upgrade it to a city, obviously it will benefit that directly.
And we've got actually a really cool dev diary that just came out. Economics feature lead Edward Zhang on our team wrote this incredible dev diary. Check it out on the Civ website, but it goes all into cities and towns in Civ 7, and it's a really great read.
I'll definitely be doing a video reacting to the dev diaries.
The thing in that diary to look for that Carl was just talking about, look at the section on town specializations, because those determine how a town can take its yield and distribute it around the empire in different ways based on the specialization you choose.
Right.
So what I really want to do first is sort of take a deep dive into some of our cities and show how they're still look pretty Greek at the moment, but we'll get them switched over and go in with exploration age stuff in a minute.
I really wish that they had maybe considered making cities have longer range than 3. I know it's not easy to do. They were able to do it in Beyond Earth. At least I saw a mod for it, like where a city had extra range. Maybe it was a different game entirely. But man, yeah, I wish I could see that get addressed.
After the transition, like I said, your military units are going to be dispersed to garrison your various cities, and I had a lot of hoplites up on my border, boxing Xerxes in. I had some fortified mountain passes there, each with a hoplite guarding them. So we have a lot of those infantry units that have been upgraded from the hoplite into the tercio, which is the Spanish version of an infantry.
So you've got piety here, so 20% production towards overbuilding, +3 combat strength for fortified districts. That's interesting. Overbuilding is when you build on top of another building. So if you have a library from the Antiquity era and you place a university over top of that, that's overbuilding. That'd be a 20% production boost towards overbuilding. That would be a huge way to develop your economy faster. A 20% production boost is effectively like getting an extra turn of production every 5 turns, which is extremely powerful. I believe a 20% production boost is a 15% production discount, the way the maths works out. Temple, tons of happiness. Relic slots, missionary units can be purchased in towns. Okay, these are all very interesting things. So we're going to see more about the religion gameplay now.
Unit. I think if we can zoom in on Madrid, let's take a look at our brand new capital. So this is a Greek city. It was called Chalkis when it was our Greek city. We built the Oracle here. We built a Greek unique quarter. The Parthenon. You can see our Greek heritage is just sort of looming over our new Spanish city. Yeah. But we're going to start making it Spanish. The population buildings filling in around the various urban tiles are starting to look Spanish now. We also have a bunch of buildings that have carried over from Antiquity. So, for instance, if we look in the water here, we have a lighthouse and a pier there, and those are from Antiquity. The Antiquity buildings are not going to be as strong here in the Exploration Age. They lose their adjacency bonuses, but they provide their basic yield effects.
Right. I like the idea that Antiquity Age buildings, they still exist and they still give you some benefits, but they're just not as strong. So, you know, right before the end of an age, you might be like, oh man, you know what, I want a little bit of extra production in this city. So you quickly drop down a workshop, right? And you just get that little bit of production. I like that. I like the way that it's designed, that there's this sort of flattening and compression of progression throughout the eras. I'm really interested about it.
All right, let's jump into choosing some civics. We want to start advancing down these new legacy paths, and like you said before, those do change from age to age. So let's talk a little bit about what we might want to do with a culture one. We see that we are being recommended piety as our culture path here, and that's because it has a temple. So you want to talk a little bit about temples and how that works.
Okay, so actually I think let's pop open the legacy path screen up off of the progress, and the first one we come to is culture anyways. So
your goal in the culture is to display 12 relics in your empire. So you have to study the piety civic. You want to establish a Toshakana cultural legacy of the Exploration Age. Cultural legacy. Piety will allow you to build a temple and establish a religion. Legacies improve your performance in later ages. Toshakana might be the thing that you unlock. Interesting.
So the first objective in terms of these legacy paths is going to be to collect relics. Now, how do you get relics? Where do they come from? They're part of our new religion system, and they are rewards that you get from spreading your religion around the world. There's a lot of changes to the way religion works compared to Civ 5 and Civ 6. I think the number one change is that every player can start a religion.
Yeah.
And
oh,
no
yes.
Race to, oh my God, I got to get a religion quick or I'm going to get locked out.
That's huge.
Don't have to worry about that anymore. So every player gets to start.
Every player getting to start a religion is a huge change to the gameplay. I think it's just, overall, it is just a positive change to the gameplay. Because here's the thing, some players might not want to start a religion, but I like that everyone will have the option to. It's really frustrating in Civilization 6 and even Civ 5 to invest significantly into generating faith and then not getting the religion.
Part one, they're going to get a holy city. That holy city is protected from being converted by other players.
So you also can never lose your religion.
Correct. But you can certainly be diminished and
So you can never lose your religion. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like maybe your religion has to go underground, but I feel like you should be able to lose your religion. Losing my religion.
AI, we'll see, is pretty aggressive about spreading its religion.
Absolutely.
And so you have to focus on it. And like religion systems in previous games, there are different sets of beliefs that you choose. We'll get to that once we have unlocked a religion. And the requirement there is to research piety, get the temple unlocked. We'll probably buy a temple with gold so that we can get that gameplay going as fast as we can. and we'll explain it in more depth as we get there.
Do you want to go over these others, or should we return to some gameplay?
Let's go back to some gameplay, and then we'll talk about this as well. I want you to definitely get those ships moving, and then we can talk about some gameplay based on that.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna start building a settler here because we do want to settle new towns in the distant lands. So I'll build that now so that we can move it over. But you talked about getting ships out, so I'm gonna go ahead and purchase. We have a large amount of gold here, so we're gonna purchase a.
I wonder, does your gold from one era carry over to the next? That'd be kind of an interesting idea.
Ship, a cog in Athens here. We do have one for free in our capital at the start of the age. Oops, you're right. I selected it for production. We want to switch to the purchase menu, and I will buy the cog. There it is.
Ooh, I like the creation animation
Madrid,
there.
New capital of Madrid. But Athens is a little bit higher up here and has some great coastal access with this navigable river. So that will let us sail out from there.
Dude, the navigable
I'm
river
also
thing
gonna
is
come
so
back
sick.
Down here, and we'll take the cog that we get in our capital, and we'll move it.
I just love this
here.
bay that
It's beautiful.
Madrid
It's a
is
beautiful
right
bay.
on. It's
God,
got
the
one
game is
navigable
so gorgeous.
Tile, river tile that opens up into this basically lake that we've put.
The game is so goddamn gorgeous. I still think cities need to be bigger. 4 tiles out. Let's do it.
Our lighthouse.
And I love that it keeps going up to Sparta too. That's really cool.
It does. And that volcano erupted so many times in Antiquity. I actually gave up on trying to keep that iron mine going because it just was getting demolished over and over again by the volcano.
But the yields,
But
the yields are so good.
and the yields were just spilling into those river valleys. It was pretty fabulous.
I also want to shout out really
Okay, 6. So we've got cartography here. This gives access to a wharf. Base yield +4. You get +1 for each adjacent coastal terrain, navigable river, and wonder. So it has a lot of nice adjacency. It increases the number of resources that may be assigned to the settlement by +2. Must be placed on coast or a navigable river. So this is all about, and cartography gives you civilian units entering deep ocean. That is really, really cool. So that's going to be how you get over to the other continent. I do really like the wharf. I that looks really cool. It's probably like the upgraded version of the lighthouse or whatever.
quickly. You can kind of see as you transition from antiquity to exploration, you're
Oh, what is this? You get the serpent mount? Isn't that the Tecum's Shawnee? Damn, serpent mount looks awesome. +4 influence, which is your diplomatic currency. You've got 3 science and 2 production to all unique improvements in this settlements. That is crazy. You've got the observatory, which is +4 science, and then science for resources and wonders. I think the observatory is like your updated library. That is sick. Wow, you get the serpent mount really early into the era.
relationships with the players maintain slightly, right? We had a couple questions from chat, I think, asking.
Wait, hold on. We've also got the grist mill here. This looks like an upgrade to the farm, the warehouse. Yeah, this looks like an upgrade to the granary, I guess, whatever. So +4 food, +1 food on farms, pastures, and plantations. So this is like your agriculture building. It's a warehouse food building. It's persistent. It can be purchased in towers. It must be placed on a river, though. So it's requires a river. And then the sawmill is similar. +3 production, +1 production on camps and woodcutters. Persistent warehouse building, can be purchased in towns, must be placed on a river. And then we've got a tier 1 exploration age siege unit, which is good at bombarding fortified districts. Wow. Okay, we're getting a ton of really interesting information here.
Asking about whether you're at war with a player in the.
Let me just go back
chat,
10
I think,
seconds.
Asking about whether you're at war with a player in the previous age, does that still carry over, for example?
So the wars are ended. I mean, all the empires are being disrupted, and there's probably a period of decades or maybe even hundreds of years between one age and the next. So there's no active war that continues over. But civ leaders live a long time. Civ leaders are hard to get to go away, and civ leaders remember. And so Carl can go and look at some of the relationships we have here, and our 2 friends from Antiquity, Ashoka and Hatshepsut, are still very friendly with us. Maybe not quite as friendly as they were before when they were allies, but they're definitely trending on that side of things. And Xerxes is still pretty mad at us.
Interesting. I like that some of the relationship from the previous age carries over, but it is also a little bit of a reset, right? It gives an opportunity for the diplomatic situation of the map to shake up a little bit, which is super interesting, and I look forward to seeing how that plays out in gameplay.
Right, so we've got
On that side of things, and Xerxes is still pretty mad at us.
Right, so we've got Xerxes to contend with, and then there are some, we'll get to them, but some other players maybe in the distant lands that we'll be introduced to as well.
Let's take a quick look at what Xerxes did. Since he's hostile with us, we want to be aware of what's happening here. I also noticed that you didn't build any walls in many of your cities. You have some in Sparta here, but now that we are in exploration, those walls aren't present, and walls actually evolve into a
and
new
I have
type.
a good explanation for this. If we go up to Thebes in the upper right-hand corner, you can see that there were all these mountains along my border with Xerxes, and what I wanted to do was put military units in the where the silk resource is and that mountain gap right next to the lake, and then I fortified them in place.
And it was a beautiful fortification
So
line.
I had a little Maginot line kind of going there.
Or Thermopylae.
Yes, exactly. I guess that's more period appropriate.
Yes, it is.
So, anyways, Xerxes was bottled in very nicely, but now I agree. If he comes at us from the north, we don't have any fortifications in place. And what is he doing in terms of what empire he moved forward to?
I think we have to advance the turn in order to see what his legacy choices were, because those occur on the first turn.
Right, and we're
so
not there
we'll
yet.
check back in with him, but we'll go ahead and pick our social policies here. So as you were talking about those reset, our government will reset. We do have to pick from our traditions only. We have because we've done no civics here, we have no exploration age social policies to pick from, only our Greek traditions. So we'll go ahead and slot some of these in. I want to get Xenia in to befriend independence that we might come across, and let's go ahead and do some endeavor potential here.
And Kappa from chat asks, does each civ have unique policies?
Yes.
Yes, every single civ has unique traditions that they're able to unlock over the course of an age, and then those will still be present in exploration and then even in modern as you continue to progress. So you're able to layer all of those things together.
And remember the unique civic tree. Imagine the civic tree from a previous civic game like Civ 6. There's a small new branch of it with anywhere from 2 to 4 nodes that represents those unique civics. For Greece before, for Spain now. We'll be diving in and picking some of those in just a minute. But that's where those traditions get unlocked. So you have to make a decision in terms of your culture. Do you invest it in sort of your own uniqueness, or do you get some of those things that push you towards the end of the civics tree that everyone's sharing? That's a hard decision sometimes, but the really powerful stuff typically is in your unique tree, so you don't want to sleep on doing that.
Right.
But in order to get a religion going, we have to invest in the generic civic policy. So actually, we're not in our unique tree quite yet.
The last thing we have to do here is pick those leader attributes that we unlocked as part of our legacies. One thing that's really interesting about leader attributes is they persist as you progress across the ages. So we do have some bonuses here from what we've unlocked in Antiquity, and these are carrying forward with us. So as we acquire more points, whether it's through something that happens in an age like these bonuses here, or through the legacy cards that we picked, we're able to continue to level up our leader and add more things to them as we continue through the game.
These look like some pretty interesting choices. The first choice is just like, oh, here's a bit of culture. Like +1 culture per age on palace and city walls. But it seems like it's quite powerful if you were to go down the left side here, right? You get a production boost towards wonders, and then you get extra culture in cities with a wonder, or you can go towards studying civic masteries, and then, which I believe civic masteries can get you great works. I could be wrong on that. But then you get culture from great works, and then you can also just get culture in settlements for resources. So there's a lot of really interesting choices here in the leader attributes.
So I'm going to spend some of these points here. This seems really good. Get some free science here.
And just as another reminder,
So +1 science per age on the palace and city halls. That is really nice. That's just like a passive little bit of science. +2 in your capital, and then +1 in every other city. That's not settlements, but cities. And then a 15% production boost towards constructing buildings is crazy good. Remember, that's every, 15% is like every 6 turns, it's like you got an extra turn. That's roughly how you should think about that, right? It's probably closer to like every 7 turns, you got an extra turn of production when you're building buildings. So a building that takes 8 turns will take 7 turns. And saving a turn here or there doesn't sound like much, but that's actually huge. It contributes massively to a snowballing effect. The science towards researching tech masteries is also super interesting. Also, I like the idea of +1 science per age on each quarter. If you combine your two unique buildings together in a bunch of different cities, being able to get like a huge amount of quarters in your empire, this could be a really nice amount of passive science. This also just looks like the generic choice. Like you get science from resources, you get culture from resources, 20% gold and happiness towards maintaining buildings. Like, I don't understand what that means. Is that saying they take 20% less to maintain? Like, the wording on how this is worded is making my brain melt, and I don't like it. What I have to expect is basically they didn't want to do discounts, right? So because mathematically, if you have a 50% bonus towards maintaining a building, that is effectively a 33% discount. If you have a 100% bonus towards maintaining a building, that's a 50% discount. Whereas if you get a 50, so like if you get, let's say you get 10 different sources of bonuses and you have plus 500% towards maintaining a building, you're still going to pay 20% of the building maintenance cost, right? Because of the way that the math works out. Whereas if you can get down, that way bonuses towards reducing things stack additively rather than multiplicatively. Whereas like a 10% discount plus a 10% discount is way better than a 10% bonus and a 10% bonus to production. Just the way the maths works out. It seems like they want to move away towards giving discounts and instead giving flat bonuses to things.
Accumulated in each age are keyed towards the attributes that you'll see mentioned for your...
So +5 combat strength against independence power. So this is if you want to fight independence. You've got war support in all your wars, military unit production, cheaper maintenance on units. That's actually really powerful. Ooh, ignore the happiness penalty from unrest and captured settlements. That's quite powerful. Also settlement limit. Garrisoned commanders reduce happiness penalties by an additional 10%. Kind of curious about that one. Happiness penalties, but like you ignore the happiness penalty. What happiness penalty is this? That's kind of confusing.
Civ and leader selection. So like leaders have two different, for instance, Isabella is an expansionist leader. So every age that you play as Isabella, you'll keep getting expansionist attributes. But Spain brings in different attributes to the mix. So your choice of civilization also factors into which of those attribute points you get to spend.
So if you were to pick a civ and a leader that had that kind of expansionist synergy, then you would just be right.
Okay, hold on. Choose a government. So you've got feudal monarchy, which is 20% food for 10 turns, 30% production towards cavalry and naval units. That's really powerful. Plutocracy is gold for 10 turns and overbuilding. So wow, this one, plutocracy seems like it would be amazing to get your like building economy kickstarted. Theocracy looks like it would be amazing to get your expansion kickstarted and your culture. Feudal monarchy seems to just like get you really good tempo for exploration. I like how each one of these is themed around a different area of gameplay. Very, very cool. This one's all about like building up your settlements and cities. Very neat.
Breaking in
Right.
the point.
And then you can invest in the legacy path that also rewards expansionist points. And so, yeah, absolutely. If your strategy is to try to push as deep into those attribute trees as possible, that works very well.
Right. All right, it looks like we're disembarking here.
Yeah, finally starting to sail out here. And the tech that I picked for us to research is cartography, which mentions something about sailing into deep ocean. Can you talk a little bit about that while I continue to play here?
Okay, so we're looking at our cogs. They are still in shallow water along the coast, but there's some darker blue deep water just ahead of them. So if you remember the new movement system that we talked about in some of the earliest live streams that's different in Civ 6, it's all based on terrain being a turn-ending blockage to your movement. And so you move as many movement points as you have, and then when you hit any type of obstacle that is turn-ending, your movement is stopped. And at the beginning of the exploration age, ocean is treated the same way. Ocean
Ooh, that's a really cool idea.
Turn-ending terrain. It's also dangerous, and every turn you end in the ocean, you take some damage.
Ouch.
So
it depends on how much damage you take, but I never really liked the taking damage mechanic that was in Humankind. So I am curious to see how it works.
you can make it across the ocean in most cases. You know, if you're not careful and you sail through with lots of deep ocean, you may not even make it to the other end. But I think in our situations here, you'll probably make it.
Okay, so you've got a bazaar. I didn't actually see what the stats were for
now,
the bazaar.
One thing that we do in map generation is we give you a little help to get across the seas. Because if you think about how any of those early explorers worked, there were islands off the coast, and as they started proceeding out into the Atlantic, the first thing that the Spanish did is they're like, whoa, the Canary Islands are here. We're going to settle here, and that'll be a great base for us to move on. So the Canary Islands, the Cape Verde Islands, Madeira, the Azores, all those became highly significant bases for the European powers to sail west and get to the New World. And we represent that. Carl just revealed that he's come up on a sort of passageway where he's going to have to go over deep ocean tile, but there looks like there's an island there, and that's
I
sort of
love the
along
way the
lines
map
of those
reveals.
historical islands. So in most of our map types, not all of our map types, but in this particular
God, the
Terra
game is gorgeous.
Incognita map type, it does represent the same
11
type of
damage is a
situation that
lot.
they faced when they were first doing New World exploration,
Right.
where you will find islands at some density. It'll depend on the map generation between you and the New World.
And I imagine if you tweak the settings to have a larger map too, then you're going to be facing more of those rough seas.
Yes, you could have those big blocks where you have just 4 or 5 tiles to go across before you find anything, and
Right.
you're taking damage every turn, and you may not make it.
Right.
We can see that our settler actually was not even able to enter open ocean yet, and that's what cartography is going to do for us. It will unlock the ability for these units to then also sail across.
And we got a question from chat from the Hyatt, who asks, when you bring your founder to a distant land, is the initial founder a town or a city?
Okay, so we'll be very clear about our terminology, just to be very precise. The founder is your settler unit only at the beginning of Antiquity.
Right.
When you have no...
Or if you do an advanced start.
Right. Well, a lot of the advanced
Actually, no,
starts
you're right, and it is
have,
only Antiquity.
have,
You're right,
have
you're
your initial town place. So it's pretty much the only in Antiquity. Every other unit you use to create new settlements is called a settler.
The one thing I don't like about the building placement in Civilization 7 is that it feels a lot like the building placement or district placement in Humankind, which was really just like big number hunting. Whereas I felt like the Civilization 6 district placement mechanic really rewarded like foresight and careful thought being put into like, okay, if I place this aqueduct here, I can put an industrial zone there. And I'm not seeing that from the current building system. So yeah.
And every settlement, when it first is created by a settler, starts as a town. It will have to then be upgraded into a city at a gold expenditure.
And that remains true for distant lands too, regardless. Right.
It does. So anytime here, I think it's about time to us to talk about why we're so focused on the distant lands. And so if you want to start showing some more of those legacy paths.
There's one thing I'm going to jump in with before we do. I actually just selected to place this bazaar on top of a building that we already have. We had a market and a garden right here. So I am replacing the garden with a bazaar. And this is what's called overbuilding. This is something that's unique to a new age when you've played a previous one, or in this case, actually doing an advanced start does apply here as well. What happens is you do, like you said, you lose all of your adjacency bonuses on your Antiquity buildings. They're still present. They're still providing you some yield. We can see in this case I'm getting 2 gold from the market, but all of the adjacencies that it had went away. So in order for me to maximize my city tiles now, I want to replace these previous age buildings with the new ones. So I'm building this bazaar on top of this, and it will get adjacencies and, as well as a higher base yield, and it will be a much more powerful urban district or quarter once it's finished as a result.
And this is a great example. You can see that this is like the waterfront for our capital city. This is going to be a great place for all those markets and anyone selling their wares coming in from goods. So that's why we've chosen the adjacency bonus of coastal tiles, given adjacency to all of the gold-based buildings.
Right.
And that's also why in the previous age this was a great place to put a market, but now we're going to upgrade it to basically the new age building. It's still going to be in that same sort of classification of buildings of the gold-producing buildings, but we want that bazaar because the bazaar is going to turn on those adjacency bonuses for us. So what you end up seeing is players do have a lot of choice over how to develop their city and which 2 buildings they combine where.
Yeah.
But you'll find there are patterns to the way the adjacency bonuses work. You have these adjacencies that come from coast or river that encourage the mercantile trade. We have a really interesting switch up to what adjacency promotes science. You want to talk about that a little bit?
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
So
Actually.
science adjacencies come from resources now?
Yes.
So it's
You mean from Civ 6?
Civ 6.
I was like, is there? I have been out on paternity leave, and we said it earlier.
No, I didn't change
it. Civ 6, you got science adjacency from reefs, with Gathering Storm, you got it from geothermal vents, and then mountains, and now it's from resources. So science and production buildings both get adjacency, their respective building adjacency from resources, and so you want to place those buildings next to as many resources as possible. So here we can see we have a library and a blacksmith that was adjacent to 2 resources here for plus
that's
2
clever.
bonus.
And really quick before we stray too far from overbuilding, we do have a question from Lunar Soul Gaming who asks, can you overbuild an ageless building?
That is a fantastic question. So there's actually 2 types of buildings that cannot be overbuilt. One of those is ageless. Ageless means that once that building has been placed, its effects continue to persist regardless or continue to matter regardless of the age. So things like the Civ unique buildings, the Parthenon and the Odeon, those are ageless. Once they're placed, we cannot build over those. So this Greek quarter that we have here, the Acropolis, is going to stay here throughout exploration, throughout modern. We will always have these buildings. We can never replace them. The second type is persistent, and those are on our warehouse buildings, like the granary here. Persistent is very similar to ageless in that you cannot overbuild it and its bonuses continue to matter. However, persistent buildings can continue to be built in future ages. So if we do not have a granary in a settlement, we can still make a granary in a settlement because the granary has that persistent tag.
So persistent buildings are kind of like your basic economic infrastructure that are available in every single era and are relevant in every single era, or every single age, rather. That's really cool. It's an interesting design that some of the buildings that you unlock in an age carry on to the next one in a more significant manner.
And talking about the legacies, the last part of this is that this matters with our specialist system. Specialists that you place onto the map are still there once you transition, but what specialists do is they boost the adjacencies of the buildings in that tile. All of those go away from the Antiquity buildings, so we want to place buildings into tiles where we might already have specialists to try to boost those again, and that's going to matter for our science legacy path. So now we'll do that and jump back in here.
So let's talk about the science legacy path. We'll switch over to that. So the science legacy path is all about building super powerful tiles within your cities. And so
interesting. So the Enlightenment. You need to research education to increase the number of specialists you can place in a single location. You then need to place 4 specialists in urban districts outside of city centers. And I think the goal is to have districts with really high yields. And now when a specialist is placed, they double the adjacency of a thing, or rather they reapply it. I don't think like 3 specialists doesn't quadruple it. It might. I don't actually think maybe it does. I need to actually learn how that works.
So this adjacency game that we've talked about, this overbuilding game that we've been talking about, it is the path to enlightenment, so to speak. So this goal that people can see here, if they're looking right under the word enlightenment, you can see you actually have to get all the way up to 40 total yields from a tile, which seems quite incredible, quite high. You know, this is normal gameplay. How am I going to, normally Civ 6, you only saw yields like that maybe around a Natural Wonder or Vampire Castle or any crazy situations. But this is actually pretty normal gameplay here in the Exploration Age, that you can get a few tiles in your cities up to this level.
That is crazy.
At the end of the age, when you can place, right now we're limited to 1 specialist per tile. We unlock higher specialist caps as we go through the age. We have to get our adjacency buildings, so buildings from this age, put in place. We'll want to stack 2 of them in the tile, and both of them have strong adjacencies. And then each specialist we put down on top of that helps both of those buildings get better and better adjacencies. And then you'll also see in our civics tree, there are civics that temporarily boost adjacency bonuses, or certain types of buildings. And that's how you can finally get all the way up to 40 total yields.
40 is crazy.
You want to do some of the others here?
Yeah, let's go ahead and finish off the legacy path.
So you're talking about distant lands. We'll go ahead and jump into economic here.
Okay, so the economic Victory is all about bringing back those exotic goods from distant lands. So we were talking about map generation, about how the map on the other side of the world can get differently generated from the homeland. But what also can happen on the other side of the world is new resources that only occur there will show up in those lands that we never had access to in the homelands. There are changes to a whole bunch of resources as we go across a transition. Some of them become obsolete. We get some new ones like niter have appeared on the map. We can see that when we go back to the map. But the most important resources are those ones that are so exotic, they're greatly desired back at home, and we can cash them in for amazing profits when we get them back home. And those resources, we'll see some examples of them, are what we call treasure resources. And when you settle near a treasure resource and set up a settlement there that has all the naval facilities, the docks and stuff that it needs, and you get to the shipbuilding technology, which is about halfway through the technology tree, all of a sudden you start to produce treasure fleets. And
treasure fleets as an idea is a very interesting concept, especially if other players can intercept them.
Treasure fleets are units that are generated automatically by these settlements, have to be protected on their way home, but if you get them home, you can cash them in for points towards this legacy points and just gold that you can spend on whatever.
Yeah.
So it's possible one of our enemies like Xerxes might hop in there and try and take a treasure fleet?
Yes. Absolutely. And I have alluded to the fact we've had some crazy naval battles in some of our multiplayer games in when the development team's been testing all this out. Treasure fleets are quite interesting in multiplayer because you grab one, you attack it, you steal it, you can take it home, cash it in for your victory points, your gold, and that other player works them. They're also worth a variable amount of points based on how many treasures were around that settlement. So you might attack one, you don't know, is this thing loaded with a ton of gold or just a smallish amount? But then you capture it, you find out.
Yeah, you can't tell until you take it.
Right.
And this is unique gameplay to this unit because unlike previous iterations of Civ, we don't have the ability to capture units. Like a settler, if you attack a settler, it will destroy it. You can't capture that unit anymore. Treasure fleets are the only type of unit that you're actually able to capture from other players and then use yourself. It converts to your unit and you're able to take it back. They can trade hands multiple times.
That's really interesting. I kind of like the idea that they've changed away from settlers being capturable. I think it was too much of a swing in tempo to steal a civilian unit. It is kind of like one of those identity things that has been kind of like just taken out of the game. But, it's perfectly reasonable for a game to change over time. I am really interested in the idea of like going for a really big naval fleet, like letting someone else kind of, take the other continent and then just privateer their treasure fleets. Like that's a really cool idea.
Piracy was ripe throughout history. It was constant in Antiquity and still has some cases today, but this was sort of the golden age of piracy in multiple different places in the world, and you can go sort of be a pirate yourself and steal treasure fleets from other players and capitalize on that.
And actually, let's hold off on the military one for just a second.
Sure.
Go back to the map and let's look at our continent lens. We may want to look at it again a little bit later when we've revealed a little bit more of the map, but the continent lens is an interesting tool for us to kind of look at the geography of the world. It's similar to the continent lens that we had in Civ 6, where there's a color coding of each continent. You can see where they start and they end. And we actually have found some of the offshore islands that are still part of our home continent of Atlantica here, but we haven't actually reached the far distant continents. So what you see from the continent lens is that there are different availabilities for these treasure resources I've been talking about based on sort of how far across the map you have pushed. In these islands nearby our homeland, you can encounter some treasure resources, so don't dismiss those. Those can be very useful sources of them. But it's over on the other continents where they're going to be filled with treasure resources all around, and you'll be able to find quite a few of them. So we'll go back to the continent lens later, and one of the cool things about it is it keeps track of the number of continent lenses that you found. So if you're trying to where did I see that really cool sugar resource or something that's going to give me, or spices or whatever it was, that will help you remember where those are.
Right. Seems like there's a real prerogative to get over to distant lands.
And we haven't even talked about the 4th legacy path, which is also important for that as well.
Yep. You have a flood happening here.
Another question from chat, can we connect defensive combat units to the treasure fleets?
So the attachment of units together, like was possible in Civ 6, sort of works through the commanders right now. And the commanders can have units included in their army. We'll see in a second that Spain has a really good advantage in doing this. So they can actually, have even...
Whoa! Town specialization. So growing town, fort town, urban center, farming town, mining town, religious site, hub town. Oh my god. So growing town, that's for actually growing it, right? That makes sense. Totally. Fort town increases healing to units and plus extra health to walls. Urban center gives culture and science on quarters in this town. A farming town gives food on farms, pastures, and plantations and fishing boats. So this is about feeding your other cities. Then you've got a mining town, which allows you to generate production. Now, production in your towns is converted into gold. This is a way to generate a ton of gold in this town. And then you've got a religious site, which gives happiness and relic slots. And then a hub town, which gives you +1 influence per settlement connected to this town. I assume that is connected by roads. Very interesting. I love all these specializations. I'm kind of curious to see what sort of specializations we'll see them go towards as the game continues to develop.
More units traveling with a commander, but that would be how you would do it if you wanted to hook in a treasure fleet.
You could protect them, essentially.
Wait, what does that say? This town focus is exclusive?
That would be how you would do it.
This town focus is exclusive. You will only be able to choose this focus or growing town until the next age. Got it.
You wanted to hook in a treasure fleet.
You could protect them, essentially, right?
It'll take 2 turns of rough seas damage here to get across.
So an interesting thing is in previous Civ games, naval units had to return to home waters in order to heal. And that was sort of particularly cumbersome with our new system where ocean was causing damage to you each turn. So we've made a change there. Basically, any of these exploration age ships can stop on a coastal tile and spend a whole turn there refitting, cutting down some more trees and patching up their sides of the ship where it's taken damage, getting some new tar and pitch to fill in those holes that they might have accumulated that are leaking. And so you can actually heal as you're moving across. It's going to slow you down, but that is definitely an option as you're exploring is take a few turns, rest back up at one of these islands that's midway across the ocean, and then push forward and see what you can find further on.
As long as you can get back to shallow water.
Yeah, yeah.
Like an oven's fire.
Oh, so we got a natural wonder here.
Yes, we do. So this is...
Personally, I hope that the healing that you can do in neutral waters with ships is really weak, like +5 HP per turn. I think it should be relatively difficult to heal up outside your own borders with a ship, because having a place to bring your ship to is actually a really important thing. Like, shipyards and ports are such an important strategic consideration that just being able to heal up in neutral territory feels, I don't know, doesn't feel amazing. Thera is the wonder that we've just revealed here, so let me go back 10 seconds.
Oh, so we got a natural wonder here.
Yes, we do. So this is Thera, which is island in the Greek Aegean, Aegean Sea, I should say. And as Isabella, this is really good for us. So this is now considered distant lands, so we get to double the gold that we acquire from this. So we got 600 gold from revealing this.
Damn.
And this wonder provides 6 culture and 3 happiness on each of these tiles. So if we settle here as Isabella, we are going to get 12 culture and 6 happiness.
Holy.
So we're gonna reveal this. Yeah. Well, I've got a settler up here.
You're gonna try to reroute that settler?
Let's reroute the settler. We still have 4 turns so we can move it across. We've got time to move it down.
Okay.
I've got
That
a
is
question from White
crazy.
and Nerdy TV, great username. Does cartography or other text increase speed through devotion?
I take refuge.
So cartography does not, but we'll see that one of those Spanish bonuses that we were talking about before does.
Got it.
And we're gonna, later in the stream, we'll get to one way to speed up your ships.
We met somebody.
Yes.
Oh, Confucius.
Confucius.
So we have tons of influence available. I think we're saving this to try to influence any independent powers we come across, particularly having our Greek background and traditions to be able to use. But I think we've...
I love that. They've got like that look how many decibels they display. 640,890,625 influence.
got 20 to spare on a friendly greeting
Absolutely.
here.
For now, we'll be friendly with
I still don't like the leader screen. I get why they have it is so that you can see your own leader, but I liked it when the leader talked to me. I still like it that way.
Notice that Confucius is a 5th leader. We never met Confucius at all during Antiquity. He must have his capital somewhere over in the distant lands. And you can see that the AI knows how important scouting and going out over the seas is to all the gameplay in this exploration age, because we sailed halfway across the ocean. We were around one.
Ooh, espionage is handled through diplomatic influence. Very interesting.
Of these islands, and the AI has come out and met us out there. Confucius is the Ming civilization. I don't think we've talked about what exploration age civs the other leaders have chosen.
Oh, you're right. Let's come back to that. We did have to advance the turn to see that. So we have Xerxes up here, who was Persia, but this was their capital and it no longer has that big star on it. So they must have also selected to move their capital just like we did. And they only had one other settlement. And it looks like they've switched to Mongolia.
Interesting decision from the AI to move their capital down south and switch to Mongolia. They could do some really interesting stuff down there.
So that's a little scary. They might try to come back.
So we had all the fortifications up on the northern border, worried about Xerxes last time. Now look at that. There were like 3 road tiles right between his city and our capital.
We just revealed Mongolia too, and definitely kind of a scary civ to have not be friendly with you in the game.
And this is one reason I wanted to talk about the 4th legacy path after we had shown that Xerxes was in the game as Mongolia, because Mongolia has a very unique way to approach that legacy path, and you
want to dive into that now?
Let's dive into that now.
Sounds good.
So let's see. You gain 12 points from settlements in distant lands, 1 point for each settlement, doubled if it's a conquered settlement or follows your religion, quadruple if both apply. Interesting.
Military victory path is called non-sufficit orbis. We revealed this name when we revealed Mongolia because they have a special way they approach this. But for a normal player, this is all about getting settlements down, sort of like the Pax victory was in Antiquity. You're still going for 12 points, just like you were in Antiquity. But now you get 1 point only if that settlement is in the distant lands.
Yeah.
And then you can multiply the points from it if it's a conquered settlement or if it's a settlement over in the distant lands that's following your religion.
So that makes religion matter for 2 of these legacy paths.
Right. Obviously it matters for the culture one where we're accumulating the relics, but now it's important here. And I also think distant lands gameplay is very important for 2 of the paths as well. The economic one, obviously, for the treasure fleets.
Right.
And here for the military one as well. Now, so how's Mongolia different? Mongolia, I think we can actually look at his leader abilities and read those out, so we make sure that everyone knows how to get to that information. So
here.
Yeah.
There it is.
Gain 1 point towards the non-sufficit orbis legacy path for controlled settlements in the distant lands and conquered settlements in the homelands. So notice Mongolia is allowed to get points for settlements in the homelands.
Right.
That's a really interesting idea, is to have asymmetric victory progress. Is like one civilization can do something to earn a victory in an age that another civilization can't do. That's a really interesting design angle, and I'm kind of interested to see how far they've pushed that.
No one else is. For us, the only way we can, as Spain, get points is we have to do things over on the other side of the world. He can just roll over his home continent and be racking up points while he's doing it. So it's a very different approach. And
we do also have this part here about controlled settlements in distant lands. So he still gets a point if he has a distant land settlement, whether he founded it or if he conquered it, but he doesn't get those bonus points for conquering it in distant lands or for having it converted to his religion, just for having the settlement.
Right, just always 1 point at a time for
And
Mongolia.
the distinction between controlled versus conquered, just being controlled, you founded or settled.
Or conquered.
Right.
Both
so,
of those.
So if we look at
I
the map
see.
here, he's got 3 settlements down there, but you'll see he has no progress towards this legacy path right now, because those were the ones he started the age with. Now, if he builds a huge cavalry army and starts rolling over the map, boom, he's starting to rack up points.
Right.
And so if you like that kind of gameplay, and not everyone's going to love the naval gameplay of exploration, I'll be a little bit sad about that because that's my favorite. But if there are players that don't like it as much as I do, they can go, and Mongolia is an awesome choice for them. We have some other civilizations we'll reveal later in the exploration age that also...
Okay, so we've got inspiration here. 10% production towards constructing wonders, +2 culture on displayed great works. Hail O'Kee, which I believe is that a wonder? Constructing a building on coast terrain grants culture equal to 50% of its cost, has 3 relic slots, ageless, must be adjacent to coast but not adjacent to tundra. Interesting. And it looks like he's about to say that there are other civilizations that can win an age differently.
Awesome choice for them. We have some other civilizations we'll reveal later in the exploration age that also are not as focused on the sort of exploration gameplay as Spain is, but we'll talk about them more later.
So we have a temple available. So I think we should just go ahead and purchase this. We still have tons of gold. We just got 600 gold from discovering that natural wonder. So we can immediately put that into purchasing a temple. Let's find a good spot for it.
Likes mountains.
It likes mountains, so
It
this
also,
would be decent.
remember that every single building gets adjacencies
From
wonders.
wonders.
And I built the Hanging Gardens here next to Athens Acropolis. We have the Colossus off the coast. We have Angkor Wat, I think,
Up here.
I like that wonders give every single building adjacency. I appreciate that. It makes them a lot more valuable depending on where you put them. That's a cool little gameplay change.
Yeah.
So we've got 3 spots that are 6s. So we do want to take a look at what we'll be replacing and what other adjacencies we have around us. There's a resource here and here, so that's good for this still being a science and production spot.
Right.
I think we put it right here.
The
You have
shadow of the Hanging Gardens.
You have two wonders here.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a pretty good placement for it.
Sounds like where I'd want to go to temple.
Yeah. So we've purchased a temple here. Let's zoom in. We can see the temple right here. And that allows us to found a religion. So let's go ahead and open that up.
Oh, baby, it's time to found a religion. Let's go. Okay, the first thought is I like the symbols. I like the colors. I like, first impression, the religion screen looks quite nice.
So here we do have a whole bunch of religions available. We don't see any custom ones, but I believe those are coming.
Those are on the way. We've been testing a prototype version of that. It just wasn't quite ready for the build today.
Sure. We'll go ahead and do Catholicism. That seems pretty historically accurate. So we're going to pick that and confirm, and now we get to add our beliefs.
So religion is, so far it's looking pretty normal. Like you click a icon, you found a religion, you add beliefs. Let's just kind of see, how does that actually look? And do you get to keep your pantheon?
So we get an enhancer belief and a founder belief, and it looks like we can unlock additional belief slots through gameplay as we continue to progress.
And players shouldn't get too locked into exactly how this is set up. This is something we're doing a little bit of a balance pass on right now. I think before the game releases, the exact order and where you unlock these beliefs may change before we ship the game.
Sure.
But the enhancer and the founder beliefs are very similar to what you would remember from Civ 6, where an enhancer belief is a way that your religion spreads in a unique, stronger fashion than the other religions in the game. So I think
So there's a lot of really cool ones, right? So this is all. So the enhancer belief is all about spreading your religion. Kind of interesting that Sanctum is +1 relic slot in temples. Like, what does that have to do with spreading a religion? Then 10% production towards training missionaries for every relic. That one would make sense to me, right? And then you've got zeal, where missionaries receive +1 charge. How many charges does a missionary start with? 2, 3, 1? Like, What percentage of a bonus is this? How quickly can a missionary spread a religion? These are all questions that are going through my mind. You've got Dawa here. When a trade route is established to a settlement, it is converted to your religion. Is that other player settlements? Is that your settlements? Like, that's interesting. Curious about that one. And then millenarianism is conquered settlements and converted to your religion. Like, if you go to the other continent and you just start conquering, are you going to get like massive bonuses towards the military age objective? That's a really cool one. Like, that could be an interesting one to take with, well, maybe not Genghis Khan because he doesn't get the religion multiplier, I think. I don't know. Defender of the Faith. Units are stronger in your friendly settlements. I don't understand how that spreads your religion. So maybe that needs to be refined. Stella Maris is movement for missionaries when embarked, and all naval and embarked units receive +1 movement. That is super interesting and super powerful. I didn't actually see what the first one was. Newly founded towns in distant lands start with this religion in place. Okay, that's kind of an interesting idea.
In a unique, stronger fashion than the other religions in the game. So I think when I played through this game, I chose the enhancer belief called conversion, the very top one, which lets any town I settle in the distant lands start with my religion in place.
That seems pretty good.
The reason I did that is I'm playing as Spain. I know I'm going to make a big distant land push.
Right.
It's going to be a lot simpler if, boom, all those cities are Catholic right off the bat. I don't have to ferry missionaries over there to get that.
So you still have a missionary unit that can be used to convert settlements. Right. And I believe you have to have a temple in order to create them. So if you start with this in place in distant lands, you can then get a temple and immediately start pumping out missionaries over there without having to go through the process of moving them across the ocean.
And when we get to reliquary beliefs, there's a cool strategy that you can do that sort of builds right on that.
Sounds good.
We do have a couple people asking in chat, can multiple leaders found the same religion or select the same religion?
No, it's the same. That works the same as in our previous Civ 5 and Civ 6, where once I choose Catholicism, everyone else is going to have to pick a different one. Just we don't want the symbols to get too confusing and the names to get too confusing.
And the beliefs are the same way, just like with Pantheon. So those are first come, first serve. You want to kind of rush to this if possible, if you plan on playing a religious game, because once you've selected a belief, it goes away for all other players.
Okay, so I want to actually, so the religions are exclusive, at least religious beliefs are, but I do want to go back and kind of look through the list of beliefs that they were kind of showing there. So we've got +4 science for every foreign settlement following your religion. So if you can convert, man, the settlements, towns, and cities, my brain just hasn't fully gotten around to that terminology. It's very structured terminology, but it also kind of, it's very new and my brain just isn't ready for it. So +4 science for every foreign settlement following your religion. So this is all about like spreading your faith to other players' cities, which is really cool. That could be an interesting one. Stewardship gives you +8 culture, gold, and science for every tile that has a natural wonder in other civilization settlements following your religion. That is an interesting one. So you want to spread your religion to somebody else's city that has a natural wonder, or indeed a big natural wonder that takes up a lot of tiles. Because that's like, if they have a 4-tile natural wonder, you're getting 32 culture, 32 gold, and 32 science. That's insane. Shrines of the Kami, +4 culture, gold, and science for every wonder in other civilization settlements following your religion. That's kind of similar to the natural wonder, but less so. So an interesting idea here is if somebody has a really strong early game, if somebody pushes really hard in the culture, builds 7 world wonders, that's 7 times 4, 28 possible, 28 possible culture, gold, and science you can get from them. And then you've got tithe, which is just gold for every foreign settlement following your religion. You've got holy ecumene, which is +4 culture for every foreign settlement. So this is all about spreading your religion to other people's cities. Reincarnation gives you science for every tropical tile in other people's settlements following your religion. Seems like religion seems to be about spreading it to other people. Shamanism gives you tundra, and then you've got desert faith, and I imagine we're going to have similar. Vipassana, which gives you happiness for every foreign settlement. It's all about foreign settlements, which is interesting. It's all about spreading to other people. Marine tiles in other civilization settlements following your religion. What is a marine tile? Is that ocean and coast? Like, that's kind of an interesting terminology. I think I don't like this sort of crunching of settlements. I don't like this idea of crunching cities and towns together into a single world, creating a third word. I think wherever they just said settlements, I would actually prefer if they said towns and cities. That's like my personal, maybe I will get used to it. But similarly, if marine tiles refers to rivers and oceans and, all that stuff, just list them would be my personal, because now I have to learn a new term. Maybe I'll get maybe it's fine. But yeah, these all look like they're really, really about spreading your religion to other players, right? You're getting happiness for marine tiles, science for grassland tiles, culture for plains, and it all seems like terrain based, which is interesting. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. These beliefs don't look that interesting to me, and I would say this feels like a downgrade from the religion gameplay in previous Civilization games, and it makes me a little bit sad. That's my first impression.
A different one, just we don't want the symbols to get too confusing and the names to get too confusing.
And the beliefs are the same way, just like with Pantheon. So those are first come, first serve. You want to kind of...
Basically, like, picking a Pantheon and building a religion in Civilization 5 and Civilization 6 felt like an actual significant part of your gameplay strategy that was relevant in the early and mid-game and could even carry you through to some, specific bonuses into the late game. And this just feels like it doesn't actually... The only strategy available is spreading your religion to other players. And I don't know if that feels very good.
A rush to this if possible, if you plan on playing a religious game, because once you've selected a belief, it goes away for all other players. What did you pick for your founder belief? And just like in Civ 6, this is something that only you get for your religion when it's spread to other settlements.
So a lot of these founder beliefs are terrain based, but I didn't know a lot about like the terrain in the distant lands that I was going to be encountering. So I typically in that situation, I will go for either Tithe or interfaith dialogue.
I am always a fan of interfaith dialogue. It's fairly safe, and science is good no matter what. So we'll confirm that, and there we go. We now have...
Yeah, I think I'm really disappointed by the religion founding system in my first impression. Like, it looks way less interesting than even Civ 5 religions, Civ 6 religions. Yeah, super, super disappointing. Really not good based on my first impression. Religion in Civ 6 was awesome. It was sick. It was like early game gameplay defining. And sure enough, it became less relevant later on in the game. But man, religion has been stripped back to a minigame in a very big way, and it does not look like a very interesting minigame. Spreading your religion was the most boring, well, I guess maybe some people, I don't know. I'll have to think about it.
Our holy city established here in Athens.
And you can see that there are two Catholic icons here. Everyone's going to say, wow, that looks like a weird bug. Why did they double that up on the UI? That shouldn't be like that. But it's actually important. So if you remember Civ 6's system, there was a whole system of religious pressure, and it counted citizen by citizen how many followers each religion had. Was very cool in terms of like it's a simulation of religious pressure and thought spreading around the world. But we decided that was more than we needed for Civilization 7 when the primary age of religious gameplay was just going to be in the exploration age. So
yeah, that is really disappointing. The religion stuff is like super disappointing. I don't even know how to properly articulate. I mean, look, I get why people didn't really like religion in Civilization 6. Religion was super fun in Civ 5. The reason people didn't like religion in Civilization 6 is because it was a victory condition. And it was a super fun and interesting mechanic, but like faith was so cool. And it just feels like they've completely stripped back and peeled away. Honestly, you know what? It feels like they've taken a feature out of the game. That's how it feels. It feels like they've taken a feature out of the game. And yeah, that just feels terrible. I actually kind of hate it.
So what we wanted to do is simplify that down a little bit. And now rather than tracking every single person, for a given settlement, we track the urban population and the rural population. So there basically are two data points. And if you convert both of those, then that city follows your religion and you get the bonuses that we've been talking about, like the tithe bonus or the stewardship bonus, all these types of things unlock when you have both of those lined up, both the rural and the urban population in a settlement following that religion. It's sort of even easier to convert a settlement for the very first time. So whenever a missionary goes to the settlement for the very first time and uses one of his charges to do a conversion action there, both the rural and the urban people all get excited about this new religion. And so for the very first time religion is being established in a settlement, you get both of those population groups flocking to your banner just with one conversion charge.
Very cool.
So, Carl, you found something very interesting here.
I did. It looks like I've discovered some treasure resources. So here we have sugar, which creates treasure fleets when connected to a coastal settlement, and cocoa, which does the same thing. So here we have, looks like 4. This is dyes, which is happiness. That is not a treasure resource. So 4 treasure resources right here. So if we settle
like
something
right between
up here,
those 2 sugars,
like
on
right
the
here,
same
we can start setting those up. What would it take other than the settlement for me to get those connected? It talks about connecting them.
So the basic requirement is you have to put down some type of naval building, and the first naval building we have is the fishing quay. And the cool thing about your fishing quay placement is we use that to sort of pick the spot where treasure fleets, once you start generating them, are going to come into play. And
So where you place your fishing key has a lot of impact on where your treasure fleets appear.
so that's a nice, you get to sort of make a tactical decision. Where do I want my very, susceptible to enemy capture type of units to be spawned? Maybe I want it in some protected harbor. Maybe I want it as close to my homeland as I possibly can. So we'll make a decision when we get that settlement up and going as to exactly where we're going to put the fishing key.
Which we just got access to cartography, so now our settler can enter deep ocean. However, it still is locked to the same movement rules as our naval unit, so it can only move 1 tile at a time in deep ocean.
It's going to take damage.
And it will take damage at the end of the turn, so we have to be cautious moving across here.
And now you have 2 great places to go. Do you
I've got
go
2.
to there, or do you go up
Maybe
for the
right
treasure
here
resources?
and maybe right here. That's a very tough call. I think maybe we put here first and start getting sort of a naval base set up.
12 culture per turn
Is
from those
very,
Pretty good.
very
So
good. So maybe we start up like a
The other-
naval base here to protect the rest of these locations.
The other important reason to do that is I'm lusting over these 4 treasure resources sitting there. That's just a fabulous sight, especially normally you'll find that when you get over the distant lands, it's a very lucky map generation to get that right there in the islands, not that far off our coast. But we do have to remember we have to proceed all the way to shipbuilding before treasure fleets are going to unlock.
Okay.
And we might want to pop up the tech tree and just show people how deep.
So before we go to the tech tree, I want to quickly... So even though you settle a treasure resource relatively early into the game, you might not actually benefit from it for quite a while, which is kind of an interesting point. But we have guilds here, right? So that gives you a guild hall. It's an exploration age gold and diplomacy building. It gives you influence and gold, and it gets gold adjacency from water and wonders. And the kiln is a cultural building that gives you a production bonus towards wonders. That's actually really cool. I want to kind of scroll back here to some of the other techs.
That when you get over the distant lands, it's
Go back 10 seconds. So you've got cartography 2, which gives you, I imagine, +1 food on food buildings and +1 food on fishing boats, which is really cool.
just a fabulous sight, especially.
Astronomy, we've seen the Serpent Mound on the observatory before, and we've also seen machinery before as well.
Normally you'll find that when you get over the distant lands, it's a very lucky map generation to get that right there.
Okay, yeah, so we've seen all those before, so let's go ahead and proceed.
Island's not that far off our coast. But unlock.
Okay.
And we might want to pop up the tech tree and just show people how deep shipbuilding is in here. So it's in the 3rd tier. We're going to have to...
So shipbuilding is the technology that unlocks treasure fleets. So if you're playing on an economic sort of game plan, it might be really good to try to rush to shipbuilding, especially if you get your treasure, like if you have your treasure fleet resources locked down. And then conversely, if you see someone else rushing for shipbuilding, maybe you rush for some like naval unit upgrade or something. So shipbuilding will give you access to the shipyard, which is base 5 production, +1 production for each adjacent resource and adjacent wonders. It's an exploration military unit. Naval units trained to the settlement with spawn at this building's location must be placed on coast adjacent to land, and it gives you a bonus production towards naval units. It allows your naval units to safely cross deep ocean terrain without taking damage, and all units ignore movement penalties from deep ocean terrain. Interesting.
Finish astronomy, finish machinery, get heraldry, get feudalism, ignore all the temptations from the masteries along the way, and then we can finally get to shipbuilding. It's going to take us a while to get there. So we've got time to get a settler up and going and get that treasure.
Mastery gets you +3 combat strength for naval units, and all embarked land units may enter deep ocean terrain. Interesting. You need this mastery to be able to go into deep ocean to send troops across continents. That's fascinating.
Generating island town up and going.
Sure. I see castles and heraldry and feudalism on here as well. So it seems like right now we're sort of in sort of a medieval period, not necessarily height of the age of sail kind of thing, and that's more towards the end of the tech tree here. But I think it's important to note that not all civilizations discovered distant lands at the same pace, right? You had oceanic civilizations in the Pacific that were discovering lands far earlier. You had Scandinavians that were discovering North America long before Christopher Columbus ever sailed. So even though it's perhaps a medieval period, it's not necessarily just your
I love the fact
standard
you're calling
European.
this out. We've met Confucius. Confucius is leading the Ming Empire. Ming was an absolute rock solid. We had to have them in exploration. Civ, because of Zheng He, the admiral from the Ming, who actually created treasure fleets hundreds of years before the Spanish did, and sailed in, I think, starting in the 1420s. He started sending fleets out across the Indian Ocean. The treasure fleets that the Ming dynasty had are amazing, and they're like 4 or 5 times the size of any Western, galleon or anything like that. Just enormous vessels. And what's cool about the game is, just like with a lot of our units, we have culturally unique variants to them. So you'll see the treasure fleet unit looks very different in the game if you're playing as the Ming Empire than if you're playing as Spain.
Very cool.
And so just make sure you know what those look like, because when you're playing in multiplayer and you're trying to capture treasure fleets from anybody else,
Yeah.
Right.
want
So
to find them.
it looks like we have a cool narrative moment.
It's really cool that the Ming are in the exploration age. Man, I'm still reeling from the disappointment of over religion. That was something I was super excited about, and man, is that disappointing. But this looks like an interesting choice. This is an area of gameplay and I feel I don't want to crap talk the hard work that has gone into this. I actually have been playing Beyond Earth recently, and Beyond Earth is really interesting because you do often get these kind of quest choices between 2 different bonuses. But I don't like this. I don't like these narrative events that have gameplay effects. Man. +1 production on specialists, like how could I not take that? That is just like so powerful. Why would I ever want just 1 relic? You know what I mean? Like, damn. That is crazy, especially if it lasts until the next era. And the thing I don't like about this is that it feels like there's one correct choice. Yeah, I don't like randomly started events that give me bonuses. It kind of worked at Beyond Earth because every single building had an event associated with it, and that was like a really cool system. I don't like random events from like EU4 and Crusader Kings in Civ. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't like it. It feels like agency for me as a player has been taken away and put into a dice roll. And here's the thing, I am the most pro RNG player ever. I love RNG in video games, but I never like it when the game rolls a dice for me. I want to be the one who rolls a dice.
Very cool narrative moment. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about this. So what I just did is I selected to build a temple in our new capital of Madrid so we can get some religion up and going there. In doing so, I selected to overbuild the altar, which is the religious building from Antiquity. I felt like that was a pretty appropriate replacement. And we get a narrative event for selecting to overbuild our altar here. So workers have stopped to gather and stare within the recesses of a hollowed out altar. The team has unearthed a once forgotten golden relic. So this is because I am overbuilding explicitly.
Okay, I feel less... Okay, I thought it was a randomly generated narrative event. I feel less bad about this if I know for a fact that, like, oh, I can trigger this event by overbuilding a temple on an altar or whatever, and I will potentially get a relic or production. Is that production empire-wide? Is that production only for the city? Like, I have a lot of questions. That is less bad. If these events are triggered from something that I do as a player, and the triggering conditions of these events are obvious, then I'm super on board. One thing I really hated is when there's a big convoluted chain of events that has to happen for a really powerful event to get triggered. Stellaris is the worst for this. Like, sometimes you get an event and you have to like open up the wiki and figure out which chain of things is the most powerful route, and yeah.
It offers some really interesting choices here. So if we construct a reliquary to keep the relic, we get a relic. And that goes towards our culture victory without us having to do anything religious to get it. Or we can melt the relic into coins to fund the construction and get +1 production on specialists. And this is a permanent bonus
amazingly good.
Every specialist for the rest of the age.
+1, this isn't even a choice for me. Even if I was going for the reliquary win, I would take that +1 production on specialists. Like, that is just disgustingly powerful in my opinion.
Been seeing this
It's so strong. But both of these are really, really good for different victories. So this is
I think that +1 production on specialists should be like for the next 20 turns or 10 turns. Like, for the rest of the game is insane. Yeah.
is really good for the culture victory. This, as we were talking about, you need specialists and high yields in order to get the science victory. This would go a long way for that. What do you think? What should we pick here? Do we want culture or science?
I didn't get this when I played through here.
Yeah,
So I
pretty
haven't
cool.
had to make this decision.
That's
Decisions,
because you didn't select to overbuild your
No,
ultra with the
I
temple.
overbuilt
But
somewhere.
even if you do that, it's not. I don't think this is a guaranteed thing.
Right.
It changes each
the
time.
way our narrative
The more I hear about the narrative system, the less I like it.
system works is stories get loaded into the game, sort of a random generation process. So you'll encounter them in some playthroughs, you won't encounter them in others. There are sort of hidden triggers to, it was an exact requirement. You had to overbuild a temple to get this story, so you may not hit those. So we've loaded this game with several thousand stories like this.
There's so many. There's so many.
The narrative team has been working endless hours to get all these stories in. Lots of them are unique. We'll get to conquistadors later in the game.
They have some
Conquistadors
stories.
have unique stories just related to them. But here's one that any player could get if they happen to overbuild an altar in the exploration.
I genuinely, every time they talk about narrative events, I can feel my hype and excitement for the game just like torpedoing into the ground, and like the desire to just play Civilization 6 instead of Civ 7 like increase. Yeah.
Exploration Age, if it happens to be rolled into the collection of stories that's available in this particular playthrough.
So we want to go ahead.
It's a tough choice.
It is a tough choice. You want to go ahead and pick the relic, and then we'll take a look at what the
let's do
relic
that for now.
looks like.
I think that's going to be more immediate.
So we'll pick that, and relics do have yields, so we'll go ahead and take a look at that relic we just got. We got one somewhere.
These kind of disappointments are kind of partially why I had been avoiding covering Civ 7, because my initial impression of the game was like super, super excited. It was awesome. It was really cool. And unfortunately, the more I learn about the game, the less excited I am about it because of these changes. I'm still trying to be really positive, and I'm still trying to trust. But yeah.
Somewhere else, I think maybe did we convert something? I don't know. We got it from something.
I think there is one on...
Oh, is it from a Civic?
Yeah.
Okay, we may have gotten it from a Civic.
There's several of the
from
Civics.
Piety.
Right.
It's from Piety. So when you unlock the Piety Civic, you get a relic immediately. We can see these provide 2 culture and 2 happiness. And that applies only, just like with codices in Antiquity, this applies only when they're slotted. So right now they're not giving us anything, but we can put these into the palace, and then the temple has 1 slot, and so we are able to start getting those yields once we equip them. So we'll go ahead and put each of these into a great work slot here.
Right.
A perfect amount of relics for a perfect amount of slots.
Indeed. And once we have the temple up in Madrid, we'll have another slot available too. And there are ways to increase the number of slots that you get.
Right.
So speaking of relics and religion,
These great work screens just genuinely seem like a strict downgrade from like the great work screens of Civ 5 and even Civ 6. Yeah, it feels like they've changed too much of the game. It feels like they've changed too much.
we did have a question from chat from Unknown Duck Robot who asks, do you keep your Pantheon in the following ages?
Unfortunately, you do not.
Dead game. Jesus Christ. Why wouldn't you let people keep their Pantheons? That is like the most anti-fun decision. Ah, man, I'm kind of in pain thinking about, like, why wouldn't you just let them keep it? Like, what? Man, that is so disappointing. I love Pantheons. I love religion. That is so cool. And it's just completely taking a backseat. And look, here's the thing. That's fine. It's fine for religion to take a backseat. I'm allowed to be disappointed about it.
I don't know that we're talking about how religion carries forward beyond
I think we can
this.
say that there are echoes of religion in the modern age.
There you go.
So
It's a good way of putting it.
yes.
Modern Age live stream to come.
Yes.
But for your Pantheon from Antiquity, those bonuses go away as they are replaced by the organized religions that are being really emphasized and spread during this period of history. Not that they necessarily religions weren't founded earlier than this, but this is when they were really spread globally to across either your own civilization or other civilizations in particular, and brought to distant lands.
So let's keep discovering more of this distant land if we can.
Yeah, we'll get this settler down and see what that does. We want to get this.
Yeah, I want to unlock those yields there.
And we've got
And
a few
I want
people.
to. We have uncovered someone
Confucius.
somewhere.
Somebody's here.
There's the eastern edge of the Ming Empire.
I'm being real risky with this guy, though. He's taken a lot of damage sailing across. I didn't stop to heal.
Do you want to try to see if he'll give us open borders so you can come into his port?
Well, I think we'll sail straight here because this is still 2 tiles, and if I go here, there might be some shallow water that way. Let's sail down.
We've got somebody asking, how do distant lands work with different map types?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a really fun question. So there's a lot of details there. I'm not going to try to go through all of them, but depending upon which map type you select, either the distant lands is going to be sort of a carbon copy of your homeland area, or it's going to be entirely different. So in this particular case, the Terra Incognita map was selected, which gives a nice large continent to begin with, and the distant lands are highly variable and very different than your homeland. We have other types where it's called Continents Plus, where it'll look like this, and you know that the distant land area is also going to look similar. We have an archipelago map type, where your homeland is a bunch of islands. Sort of think of.
That's really cool. I like that there are different map types. I'm kind of interested to see how the different map types affect gameplay.
Of Indonesia in real world, and the distant lands is also a bunch of islands. So everyone's playing on sort of the same type of playing field, but it's very, very different than what we're seeing here in this game.
I love that map type.
There's also like a shuffle map where you're not sure what your homeland's going to be, and so basically we'll tell you by the map type what you're going to start with. And some map types you can be guaranteed that the distant lands will look very similar, and some ones they will not.
Right.
Now these islands that we're exploring in the middle, those don't appear in every map type as well. So for instance, we have Continents Plus, which is what we're playing right now. Those always do have offshore islands in them, but there's also a continents map where there's just a wider swath of ocean to get across, no islands to help you out. It's going to be close enough you can make it, but kind of the support that we're getting from these islands in the middle is kind of missing on those map types.
Right.
It is very interesting that there are a whole bunch of different map types, and I'm really excited to see the different kinds and explore them and try them out, and that each one will offer unique gameplay, because we're all going to naturally gravitate towards the ones that we like the most. I'm a big fan of Pangaea, so curious to see how that plays out.
So here we have a discovery out here in the middle of the ocean, so we'll try to pick that up next
coastal
turn.
edifice.
And speaking of islands too, we have somebody asking how island cities work as well. So it's a little bit more of a tight space to settle there.
It depends. So the islands that we're looking at here are very tight. We do not have a lot of land to put down your districts, but some of them will have a lot more. So this island being a good example, you can't build on top of resources, but if these resources weren't here, there would be a good number of tiles for us to build on.
And it might be a good excuse for a town, right? Instead of a city, and kind of focus that in.
And then it also,
that is something that I really like about the game, is the differentiation between towns and cities is kind of cool, because like settling a one-tile island in Civ has always been a bit of a meme, but having it actually just be like a big fishing island is kind of cool, and you can only fit like 2-3 buildings in it. That's kind of a cool idea. Whereas like, maybe a bigger island would definitely be justified in being a city, a full-fledged city. It's kind of, it's a very interesting idea.
people are like, oh, I don't necessarily like coastal cities, and those coastal buildings aren't that useful. Out on the islands, all those coastal buildings like the wharfs and the other things that we're going to be unlocking in this age become incredibly valuable. So you'll want to have, remember that an urban district isn't always on land. Urban districts can be on water. Basically any tile that has a building in it is considered urban.
Right.
Yeah, they all have to connect back to the city center. So you have to figure out a way to engineer it so that everything connects back. But I love the buildings going out on water because they let you do things like extend your city across a navigable river to the other side, across a lake. We have this really cool example in our capital city of the navigable river inlet here. If we had settled like right on the end of that peninsula, we could have used a water building to get south and
to build across.
That would have
Which
been a
I've
great
done up
place
here.
for a science.
I've done up here with
3
Athens, and I've
resources
built
next to it.
across.
Yeah, so that's how we have North Athens across the river there.
Right, right.
And I don't know if we've talked about this a lot, but we have bridges as buildings in the game. And bridges can go down on navigable rivers, and they're a great way to get your city across to the other side of the navigable river.
So we have like another narrative event here with this.
We do.
I do like the parametric events, like spend 2 turns of your gold or get 200 gold. Because like if you don't have a lot of gold, spending 2 turns of your gold isn't that much for a civic boost. But also, if you don't have a lot of gold, getting 200 gold is nice. And so by sort of pegging the price of this to your gold production, it actually always makes the choice relevant, which is something I really appreciate.
So this is a discovery that I've unlocked. So we can, unemployed sailors cluster around the docks of the port. There are too few ships, too little work, too much time. So I can choose to expand the port by spending 2 turns of gold, which is 220 gold, to get a boost to Civic, which could be really good, or I can get 200 gold. So either I'm spending 200 gold to get culture, or I'm gaining 200 gold.
400 gold to get for a civic boost, basically.
Just 200. 240.
But you're losing the 240.
Oh, but I'm losing this. I see what you're saying.
The opportunity
Yeah,
cost.
the opportunity cost. So what I think we'll go for the civic boost. Honestly, we've got tons of gold available.
Gotta
It's
spend that
expensive, but
Well, I actually have plans for that gold. So
and what did we get boosted? We got.
I think we have to advance the turn to get the boost.
No, I think the notifications.
Oh,
there.
it's right here. You're right. Civics have been boosted. It didn't actually tell us. Let's look at the tree here. So it was not this one.
It was economics. Look at this, like 2 turns. Is that?
No, we were already there.
I think it might happen the next
I think it's
turn.
inspiration
Yeah,
because
okay.
it got.
So, anyways,
reduced
let's
there.
look at our unique Spanish civics while we had that up and we're
Sure.
talking civics. So we were talking about how every civ has a unique civic tree. You've created a bunch of these. Why don't you talk about how you kind of came up with the, how many nodes they should have and how involved they should be?
Sure. Well, that was.
So mastery of the Council of the Indies gets you the Casa de Contratación, which is base yield plus 5 gold for each adjacent river, natural resource, wonder. It's ageless, must be built in the home. Oh, it gives you +1, and you get +1 movement to treasure fleets. Very cool.
That was an ongoing process. Trial and error, figuring out what worked, what didn't work, what looked.
I do think that the unique Civilization Civics tree is one of the things that I love the most about Civilization 7. Like, that is one of the coolest possible innovations that they've put into the game. That is something I'm very, very firm on.
Looked good, what felt good. The goal here is to have an interesting and engaging tree of approximately 3 to 4.
Oh, what was that? I didn't see what the second one was. So New World Riches gets you the Cerro Rico, which is +2 gold for each resource. Well, that's pretty good. 10% production and food in settlements in distant lands. So Spain definitely seems to be themed around going to distant lands.
Here is to have an interesting and engaging tree of approximately.
And then the Mastery of the New World Riches gets you +1 settlement limit, and the El Escorial, which I think this is a faster way to unlock the wonder than normally is available. Oh yeah, this is the relic one.
3 to 4 civics. Mastery is optional for every single civilization, and this is.
Fleet commanders received the flotilla promotion. Very interesting. I don't know what the flotilla promotion does. Great and most fortunate navy. You get a 50% production boost towards naval units, and naval units cost less maintenance. That is sick. Some of these abilities look really, really powerful.
This is where a lot of your unique content.
And then Mastery gives your land units +2 movement when embarked. Spain definitely looks like they're heavily focused around exploring and exploiting seas and resources. So I'm kind of interested to see, no pun intended there, how they shake out.
Content unlocks, not your unique military unit. Those still come from the tech tree because those are typically replacements for other units. But this is where you get your traditions, your unique buildings or tile improvements, and you can get access to your wonder. You can get it the normal way through techs or civics, but you can also get it faster here.
Typically a faster way.
Typically.
And we had the question before about movement bonuses. I think if you look under Armada, we can see some bonuses. The flotilla promotion lets you pack more units into the Armada, And then there's a mastery here that lets land units moving across to establish settlements over across the ocean. So we're going to get more movement with embarked.
And this changes for every single civilization. So many of them have this format where it's sort of like one into two others. Some of them are 3 or 4 in a straight line. Some of them are much taller, and so it branches out into a big stack. Not all of them have masteries. The more culture a civ has, typically the more masteries or civics it has to unlock.
I do really appreciate that the different cultural trees are not symmetrical. That is a design decision that I fully support, and I really appreciate that. And no notes, like the cultural civic tree stuff is awesome.
Not every case, but that is sort of a standard rule. But the order of how you unlock things here is definitely a part of every civ's balance, and how quickly you can access some of their more powerful things are part of that.
And that's something to keep in mind. I think people are getting a sense of this when they look at our civ guides that are going up on the website. But one reason we're doing civ guides is civs are really deep now. They have a lot of things going on with them. And you might look at the initial description of what's this civ's ability, and it's a quick little one-line thing. For Spain, for instance, you want to bring up the Spanish ability so people can see what that looks like?
Sorry.
Yeah, and I think we might even want to jump ahead a little bit.
We can, yeah. I'm going to do one more thing before we do here.
The Siglo de Oro is the Spanish ability, so they get cheaper conversions from towns to cities, especially if they're trying to create cities in the distant lands to sort of establish that Spanish colonial empire. But that's just a really small bit of the full abilities that Spain unlocks once they get through their whole unique culture tree.
There's a lot more to each one of these.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I want to do here is we have Toledo, which I believe in our later save that we're about to jump to got a different name. I think it was Barcelona.
Yeah.
And that's just our random city naming system. But what I'm going to do here is go ahead and start spending some of our gold. So when you first settle a town, you will get a growth event. Do we have one up? No, it has to. Oh, we did. I selected right here. Yeah. I already did the growth event. So that allowed us to expand out to pick up the fishing boats on the pearls. We were able to assign that to our capital. That gave us access to this, so we can start expanding into Thera on the next turn. The more growth events you have immediately, the more you would be able to jump out and grab tiles or grab resources. We could pick up this fish immediately, but we can also buy things here right away. So we cannot buy settler. You see there's no settler on this list, and that's because you have to have 5 population. Buildings do add a population though, so if we buy some of these buildings, we'll start to increase that population and maybe get the ability to buy settlers, and then rather than having to sail them all the way across, we can launch them from this city.
Also, you can choose these buildings to expand towards the volcano here and pick up those yields even faster. We can get food buildings that are going to give us growth events more rapidly. So there's lots of cool strategies you can take.
Absolutely.
And I think when we do load into that second save, we'll be able to see some of the effects of this building on this town too.
So now I've put down the temple. We could do a missionary if we wanted to.
Because we have the belief where we get to...
Right. It also acquired
immediately get our religion in any distant land settlement that we have created.
So we started to establish ourselves out here, and I think
that's really cool. I don't know how I feel about buildings giving population to a town. I'll have to see how that feels to play.
You can go ahead and jump forward, and then we'll see what it looks like much later.
So we're going to jump, I think it's close to 50 turns later, and you will see the Spanish colonial empire up in their full glory. We are returning treasure very soon.
Yes.
So the townspeople of our capital in Madrid are going to be cheering when they see those treasure fleets come home. We have had a little bit of trouble with Confucius, though, because you'll see that we settled all the way over on the distant lands continent, very next to the capital city of his empire that we were just starting to see the edge of there. And so we're not nearly as happy with Confucius. I mean, we had an initial friendly greeting there. Carl spent some influence to get a friendly greeting with them, but
how the years have soured our relationship.
Exactly.
Also, as we're kind of loading in, I just want to take a minute to shout out some very cool things coming to Civ 7. Let's talk about cross save. That's new, right?
Yep.
Which is extremely exciting.
Cross save, I personally don't care about. I only play on PC. I can see how it would be nice for people who play on multiple platforms. It's nice for the people that it matters to. It's a bit like making your game support Linux, though. Like, how many people are you really, capturing in that umbrella?
We also have cross-play, which is new, and really want to shout out
Crossplay is really cool. Being able to play Civilization with your friends, regardless of the platform that they're on, is really nice. But I do think that Civilization has always been a PC-forward game and should remain so. I think the game is best played on PC, and that should be the experience that is focused on. Because oftentimes when developers cater to non-PC users, the PC user experience suffers. And, speaking just frankly and selfishly, I don't want my gameplay experience degraded because some dude wants to sit on his couch and play Civ.
Out too that Civ 7 is coming day and date to PC and console for the first time ever for a Civ game, which is a huge development for the team.
It took us quite a while to get Civ 6 out to all the platforms it's on today. We keep wanting to emphasize that all those players that started in with the Civ franchise on a PlayStation, on an Xbox, on the Switch, we feel like they're part of our family now. We don't want to forget any of them.
No, totally. And I think it's totally fair that they're like a part of the family. It's just like, I'm speaking pretty selfishly, right? Like that, I don't want my experience of the game to be degraded. But I'm totally happy for those people. But it doesn't matter to me personally, right? I can understand why the developers matter because like a significant portion of the player base is on console and on those alternative platforms. But that doesn't matter to me, right?
When Civ 7 launches in February, and we're also excited about that, we want everyone to be able to enjoy that excitement. There's a lot that we're doing to make all the platforms, home base for any of our Civ players.
Yeah.
Let you play with other people who might be on different platforms. So we have more to talk about that, but the cross-play and the saves being compatible across the different platforms is a huge part of that. That's sort of the first big announcement for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so let's hop back in here. I think we've jumped ahead a little bit. What has changed?
We're about to turn 50 here. We've explored a lot more. So if we just sort of pan our map, we can see here's Barcelona, which we were talking about previously. We have these glorious yields here, 12 culture, 6 happiness. We've settled our treasure fleet location, and we've settled another one over here. This is sort of a beautiful bay that you've discovered.
Yeah, so I sailed up to this bay. I felt like I was Captain John Smith discovering the Chesapeake back in...
I will say this map generation is beautiful. The graphics and the generation are amazing. I don't know if I love the way that the vegetation on this new continent looks. It looks very sparse. I think I would much prefer to see a much denser distribution of the trees. They seem to be hugging like the edges of tiles. I would like to see a sort of return to the extremely dense vegetation of Civilization 6 and Civ 5. It just looks a little sparse to me.
In the day, because I was just seeing treasure resources left and right. There's chocolate on one side of the bay, there's sugar on the other side of it. There's a little navigable river connection into an even deeper bay.
Right here.
Where there's even more chocolate and sugar.
Which there's another thing to consider here, because just like in Civ 6, city centers count as canals. So if we were to have settled right here, this would go both directions, and you'd be able to sail around like that.
I may have played this game further, and I may have settled a city right to the northwest of that next chocolate down the bay.
Oh,
go towards Amina's capital here.
I see.
And
over here?
Yeah, and so there's, if you put a right
there.
Yes.
I see.
So I could
That's
actually
beautiful,
sail right up to her capital.
You could change that. Well, this is too close, but yeah, there's some interesting things you could do here.
So this is the Terra Incognita map. We're starting to see what that looks like. I said that is a random setting where it's lots of...
I do like how the map looks. That's something I will say. It looks very interesting.
Bays and inlets and little lakes. We happen to roll that one here.
Yeah.
Look at all these lakes.
Lots of lakes.
Really interesting gameplay.
If we were to ever have a lake civilization, this would be a great map for them.
I also want to point out, I see a couple of independent powers. We've had a few questions come in about independent powers, how those kind of work through the ages.
And so it's super important that you go through that, because we unlocked another belief in these 50 turns. We got our reliquary belief. We want to go up to our religion screen. We can scroll down and see that we have the reliquary belief icons.
Well, icons looks really powerful. +2 relics for the first time conversion of a city-state. That looks awesome. That's a really cool game-changing ability.
The reliquary beliefs are a special choice that you make that gives your religion a unique way of creating relics that no one else has. And we decided, because we were pushing out over the distant lands, and because there are 4 major powers, major civilizations in the homelands, only 2 in the distant lands, we were going to be out in the distant lands, and there's just more space for independent powers to be over there. I was thinking, we're going to see a lot of independent powers. I have some special traditions from playing as Greece that allow befriending independent powers to go more rapidly than usual. And so that picking up relics from converting them to our religion would be a great way to go.
And they change a bit too, the independent powers from Antiquity to Exploration as well, right?
The ones that were there on the map before are no longer there. They're brand new independent powers, brand new abilities that you get from befriending them and becoming suzerain of them. And the names are all changed to be sort of Exploration age appropriate. It's a whole fresh set.
Having that influence is a pretty
Now, Carl is showing you something really pretty here.
Yeah, this is the Spain unique quarter. We've placed both of our unique buildings into this tile
plaza
here, and it creates the plaza, which is their unique quarter. So it's really, really pretty here. You can even let's rotate around a little bit. We'll see the front of those buildings.
It's beautiful.
It's picking up 13 yields now, but we just need to drop some specialists on it, and it could be one of the tiles that we push towards 40,
Absolutely,
40 yields
I think so. Yeah.
So
I like the game is so gorgeous, but
a big part of
I'm a little worried about the
Exploration,
gameplay.
That naval battle, the naval combat.
Yes. So we've done a lot of work to try to make naval gameplay much more important in Civilization 7, and a big part of that is the exploration age. So we've already talked about the economic legacy path and how you're able to capture other people's treasure fleets and capture their victory points from them. So it's very important for you to have a navy to defend yourself. It's very important for you to have a navy to try to stop other players from winning that and to capture their points and accelerate yourself. So out here in Barcelona, we have gone ahead and built ourselves a little bit of a navy to try to protect the treasure fleets that we're going to get from our settlement here and across on that sort of bay that you've discovered. And a big part of this is our new commander unit from Exploration, the Fleet Commander. So there is we still have army commanders. We have one right here. This one is actually ready to pack up a couple of units perhaps, but we have a fleet commander that is ready to pack up all of our naval units and start moving them across. And it has its own set of promotions as well that we'll take another look at when we start combat.
Before you pack him up, we need to augment these commanders.
Yes.
And we have the plaza that Carl was showing us back in our homeland. As soon as you have a unique quarter finished, it works the same way as the mechanic does for Greece. That city is then allowed to build the great people that are unique to your civilization.
Oh,
So
the
we've been building
conquistadors.
Conquistadors since that plaza was online, and sailed some of them west to Barcelona. And we have Ferdinand Magellan as the first of the conquistadors. Carl, you want to show us what his ability is?
So Magellan.
Magellan's ability is I can't really read
activated
it
in
or
distant
understand
lands
it.
on a fleet commander to give it +2 movement and +2 sight. So we have to move this guy over to our commander here. We can see that the commander currently only has 3 movement. And if we select Magellan, we are now able to activate that.
I like the idea of being able to
But
augment
how
and
do you get
customize a
more
unit.
movement? This is one of those
Right.
answers.
Has gone up to 3 out of 5.
That
This
is
will
really
refresh to 5 out
powerful.
of 5 next turn, but because the turn's already started, he's missing that initial movement.
That's
And we'll
really
go ahead
powerful and really
pack
cool.
up
I like that you can kind of
our
modify
naval
units.
here.
I think there are 3 Carracks.
And look at that beautiful fleet. And we'll start. I think that he still has his 3 movement. The other units that he packed, their unit or their movement has gone away, but the commander still has their movement.
And now the commander is really driving this fleet forward.
Yes.
I do love the commander system. It
And
simplifies moving armies around the
similarly,
map.
We have a conquistador who's over with that army commander. So this is Miguel Legazpi, who was the conquistador who conquered the Philippines for Spain late towards the
Oh
end
wow!
of the
So you get
16th
two
century.
range units and an infantry
And
unit on an army
his
commander.
ability lets him sort of basically get an instant army packed on up, ready to go after a distant lands. Well, actually anywhere you want to use them,
Well, that's
but
powerful.
yes.
Very-
That's really cool.
So we'll go ahead and fill this up.
I do like the design of the
Green
great
units
people
and 1
in
infantry
Civilization
unit.
7. Like, it's super interesting the way that they've set
And
things
now
up.
if we select this army commander, we can see that those units are in there, and we will embark the army commander to follow our fleet so that we can launch an amphibious invasion.
And we have a missionary there because we can see that we're getting pressure from other AI religions. Barcelona has flipped. I think, is that Confucius who's established
Probably.
Buddhism there? So we have one missionary who's defending our faith in Barcelona. Remember, for those non-sufficient Orbis points, distant land settlements like Barcelona are going to score us double points if we can keep them converted to our religion, so it's very important for us to do that. There's also a missionary to the northwest of the main fleet that's headed up to our new city-state ally of Damascus, because if we can convert Damascus to our cause,
We'll get those 2 relics.
we'll get those 2 relics, and that would be certainly nice as well.
I do have a quick question from Call Me Dale.
Okay, so we've got another narrative event. So you get a
Are your home
burst of
content
science.
resources counted as treasure resources for people from distant lands?
That's a
Or a burst of culture. This seems a lot more reasonable. Temporary bonuses, I'm okay with getting from these.
really good question. It's not true currently, but we are looking into potential ways to make something like that work.
Okay.
That kind of sucks that you can't have asymmetric colonization. That would have been a really cool gameplay idea.
Very interesting. So we had another narrative event, which
We did, yeah, that one was a choice between science or culture. I went ahead and picked science to try to tech up a little bit here.
And speaking of science, we have finished shipbuilding, so that makes a bunch of changes. First of all, we've been going right across those deep water tiles. If people notice, we're no longer stopping on each one of
Yep.
those. The other thing it does is it allows us to start generating treasure fleets. But treasure fleets take a little bit of time. They don't pop out immediately. But we can go to our resource screen and we can check to see the progress of treasure fleet generation in our settlements. We will see that our 2 distant land settlements are either 1 turn away from a treasure fleet or 5 turns away. And one of them is going to be worth 4 treasure fleet points, and the other one's going to be worth 3.
Oh, did you see the board game designer coming out in Ed right there? He almost said victory points, like this was a Euro game.
So we will see a treasure fleet very soon.
and
They're very pretty.
Selena Gomez TFT asks, are treasure fleets automated or do you have to manage them?
So it is automated that they are created every X turns. You don't have to like queue them up in the production queue or anything like that. That part's automated. But once they get on the map, they do not work like trade ships or caravans where they just sort of automatically path. It's too important to the gameplay of this age, especially in sort of a multiplayer situation, that you can, carefully decide when you have the other fleets around to protect them, when the enemy's around, when it's not around, so you control their movement entirely.
Got it.
And then when they get home, there's a special unit action on them to unload cargo, and that's when the points get cashed in.
Nice. So we're trying to turn our city back
Yep.
to Catholicism here.
All right, so we do have, wow, so Confucius has sailed up here. I think he might be moving on our treasure fleet that
no.
will spawn in 1 turn.
How did he know it was about to appear?
Well, he's just timing it out, I guess. So we want to try to defend that. So we're going to unpack these, and we'll get to start attacking these. We'll declare war.
Yeah, declare war.
We'll
first,
declare
yeah.
war. Well, I'm going to unpack first so that I'm not dealing with zone of control,
Yeah.
and then I will declare war. But before I do, I want to check in on this fleet commander's promotions to see what it is that we're working with, so we know how that's going to impact what this battle is going to play out with. So we have 4 promotions on this fleet commander. And we notice immediately that while we still have the 5 trees and the 5 commendations, that these are a little bit shorter trees than the army commander. And that's because you're getting these later in the game. You have had less combat with them. We want you to be able to finish the trees a little bit faster as a result. So there's a 1 less promotion in each tree. We do have a random promotion in the middle here. This is
It's not random. It's comes from.
I mean, it's not from, like, we don't have anything prerequisite promotion to unlock it. This is from our unique Civics as Spain. We get this flotilla promotion, which
comes off the Armada Civic.
Exactly. So that gives us 2 additional unit slots for 6 total. And land units can then pack into this commander.
That's kind of cool to get a free promotion in the middle there. I wonder if that gives you the prerequisite to jump down to the bottom of the logistics tree. At the very least, it means you get there in 2 promotions rather than 3.
Which is really cool.
Right.
And then
I also wonder if free promotions increase the amount of experience that your fleet commanders need to earn to get their next promotion.
On the bombardment tree.
Okay, let's see. +3 combat strength for naval units within the command radius when attacking land units. So this makes you really good at bombarding land units with your naval units. It's kind of a cool idea.
We have shelling, +3 combat strength for naval units when attacking land units.
+1 ranged attack distance for naval units. Now that is powerful. Being able to, if the economy portion of a civilization game is like a race, the combat portion of a civilization game is about focus fire. How much damage can you pump onto a single enemy unit to secure a kill? And so Spotter allows more units to effectively attack the same unit.
Spotter +1 range attack distance. So that is really, really powerful.
As long as our naval units are within command.
Within the command, this is all within the command radius. And then we have gunfire support. Naval units within the command radius have the splash ability. Enemy units in tiles adjacent to the target take 50% of the total damage done to the target.
That is really cool. It seems super powerful, but it's also really, really cool. This is going to be like a game, like in multiplayer, this must be a game-defining ability. Like everyone needs to get this. Because if you're not doing splash damage, I don't even know how you would counter this. The +1 range and the splash damage is just disgusting.
This works everywhere. It works on naval units. It works on land units. Anytime you make an attack with a naval unit with this promotion, you are dealing 50% of that damage to all enemy units in adjacent tiles. It's very good.
Carl's favorite promotion.
I designed it, so it should be.
Confucius better watch out.
Yes, indeed. And so this is one of those things.
Like the reason that this is crazy is let's assume like for every, you can have up to 6 units adjacent to an enemy unit. For every 2 units that are adjacent to the unit that you attack, you double your damage, your effective amount of HP that you damage. So like if somebody has 5, let me think about this. Like, yeah, it's just like, it's crazy. It's crazy powerful.
We were talking about where we really, really wanted to make naval gameplay extremely important. If you have a fleet commander and a fleet sitting on one of your cities attacking you with this, it's just going to decimate you. You have to target it, you have to defend yourself, and the best way to do that is with other naval units.
So talk about the commendation options as well.
So the commendations are really interesting because these you get from completing a tree. So we've gotten all the way to the bottom. You don't have to have every single promotion in that tree.
You just have to reach that bottom
You have to reach
level.
the bottom. So once you do that, then you get a commendation point that you're able to spend on one of the commendations. These are not tied one-to-one with each tree that they're beneath. You can select any of the commendations, and the one that we've unlocked here.
Oh, Heroic Assault. Deal direct damage to a unit in the command radius that has the same domain as the commander. So I assume land units attack land units, sea units attack sea units, air units attack air units.
Here is Duty. Gain the Heroic Assault ability. Deal direct damage to a unit in the command radius that has the same domain as the commander. So in this particular case, it's a fleet commander, so it can only attack naval units, and this is direct damage. This is not combat strength. There's no calculation that happens here. It just does an attack that just damages that unit. It's very, very strong.
And it goes on cooldown for a while, I think.
I want to say it's every turn, but it could be there could be a cooldown, yeah.
And how are
We've played around with that a few times.
Yeah.
How are new commanders earned? How do you get commanders?
So you can build or purchase commanders. The cost of each commander increases for based on the number of copies of that you already have. So for each army commander you have, army commanders become more expensive. For each fleet commander you have, fleet commanders become more expensive. And commanders carry over across age transitions. So the army commander that we had as Greece and Antiquity carried with us into exploration with all of
the fleet commander and the army commander stuff is genuinely some of the most exciting stuff about the war-based gameplay for Civilization 7. I am a little bit worried that they become like game-definingly overpowered, like in the sense that like someone with a commander with 2 more promotions, then you will just automatically win a war. But, you know, I'm interested in it. I really love messing around with promotion trees and stuff like that, so I'm excited.
All of the promotions it already had. So these promotions will continue to persist, and this fleet commander will go into modern when we eventually transition with all of the promotions that it has earned as well, which makes this free one from being Spain, particularly powerful.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and unpack. We're going to select this button, we're going to select this tile, and all of our units unpack here. They do have no movement. There is a promotion that lets us do that on the Army Commander, and it is also on the Fleet Commander. I believe it's one of these two. So reinforced hull, naval units within the command radius take half reciprocal damage when flanking. That's not it. Weather gauge, naval units within the command radius can move after unpacking. So this
The move after unpacking is like, oh my god, it's like a violent pinata, and I love it.
will let those units have their movement as soon as they unpack. I don't have that right now, so I'm not going to declare war, because then he'll attack these units before they get a chance to attack first. Yep. So we'll go ahead and skip that combat and do it next turn. We're going to sail this guy over.
The other Army Commander that's garrisoning at home does have that promotion, but not this one.
Nice, okay. Good to know. How many relics do we already have? Let's find out. So before we go,
we only have
the two. Okay. So we have robes and we have the medicine bag.
We need to flex this independent power.
We will get there for sure. We have 113 right now. Have we already started influencing this? We have. So we are befriending.
That's our path to 2 more relics. We'll have to send a missionary now.
We may get to this. We may not.
Probably. So this is going pretty slow. We'll go ahead and add another.
But that's our long-term strategy.
Right.
You need some of
that
those
is a
when you're
long-term
playing Civ
strategy
as well.
I think this is another. No, that's just towards purchasing units.
So we'll move through some of these turns, I think, to progress this battle.
Yes. Skip that. We want to keep growing. We want to pick up this cocoa, which will add another point to that treasure fleet, which I think just spawned.
Yes, let's go look.
I'm going to put this to sleep. I'm going to put this to sleep. We will put this to sleep. All right, we're going to go up here and we're going to check out this treasure fleet. So it is.
Oh man, look at that fleet! That is so cool.
Down. Beautiful ship. We're going to select that. It is worth 4 points, and we're going to start sailing it back home. This looks like a pretty direct route.
All it has to do is get within home territorial waters, basically, of a homeland city, and then we can do the unloaded cargo.
There's an action that you can.
I think that's kind of boring. I wish there was a royal port building that you had to build, that your treasure fleets had to make it home to, right? Or else you didn't get the full reward. Imagine some unscrupulous port guy is, siphoning off some of the treasure for himself. I think it'd be more interesting if you had to build, sort of like Beyond Earth. I don't know, if there was a building that you could build that would act as a drop-off location. I think just having to get it home to home waters feels a little boring. I think it'd be more interesting if you basically had to telegraph to other players where exactly you were going to be trying to bring your treasure fleets to, because then they could start setting up blockades. They could start interacting. I think just getting the treasure fleet home feels kind of uninteractive, so I'd like to see some iterations on that.
Yeah, it's only one more turn.
I think it's pretty safe, yeah.
Yeah. Confucius isn't going to get the jump on the first one.
He might on the second.
Our second one that comes from
He has moved up further. We now have the ability to attack, though. So I'm going to go ahead and declare war. And we are hostile with him. So that means that we can declare a formal war. You can only declare a formal war if you are hostile. Anything higher than that, you cannot. It has to be a surprise war.
I may have denounced him a few times.
You may have denounced him a few times to set this up. It's worth noting that the leader that we revealed earlier, Machiavelli, does not have to obey that rule. He can always form a war no matter what. And the difference there is that it causes war support. So if you declare a surprise war, they get additional war support, which will then hurt us. It hurts yields, it hurts combat strength. Formal war does not do that, so we'll just go ahead and declare that.
That's why Carl was checking his influence balance, was whether he could put in extra war support.
I did want to just go ahead and advance that independent power and try to get more relics. I think that's a little more important, but we could, if we get more, add to war support. Now, let's go ahead and do some attacking.
Now, what's the strategy? Let's select the commander first and look at some of the special attacks that he's got.
So he has, just like the Army Commander, they have a group attack that they can do. So
I love that. The coordinated naval attack is awesome.
All naval units within the command radius to attack a specified target. All units have +1 combat strength for that attack. And then barrage land target, which is the same thing, but for attacking units on land. We are going to go ahead and do this and have everything bombard this ship here, which should... I'm not sure that Splash works with this, but we're about to test it and find out.
If you want to.
For science right here, folks. Did I do it right? No, I didn't.
I think you lost your selection there.
Try the other one.
He's struggling.
What
Uh-oh.
am I doing wrong, Ed?
Well, this is the caveat that Sarah
It's
said.
still in
Work in
progress.
progress build.
All right, we'll do it individually. Let's do that.
Work in progress,
Just learned
baby.
something.
Oh, I wonder what is going on. I cannot move my unit here. That's very strange.
Looks like Confucius may have the upper hand on us after all.
Definitely.
Does progressing the turn?
We'll do that in a
We'll
second.
check that in a second.
I think it's this looks like a classic bug. Ooh, this looks like a classic bug from Civilization 6,
Okay, you just went ahead.
which is where if a leader has had a reaction to something you did, you can't move your unit sometimes. Classic Civ 6 bugs.
So I think maybe trying
I might be wrong,
click on
though.
the ship and then right-clicking on the target.
Yeah.
He sailed away.
There. Now we're moving.
Now he's running.
All right, so we're gonna move here, and we do have. This is our army commander. I need our fleet commander. We do have our increased attack range with this, so we are going to. But these are probably melee at this point, so we're gonna have to just chase after him here.
While we do this, we do have a question from chat. Is there a limit to commander amount?
Not a hard limit, no.
It's a
but
production
because
limit,
They get
like-
more expensive with each one you build. They do become prohibitively expensive.
And, and remember, to give them most of their power comes from the promotions. The promotions is always earned from combat experience. They can both pick up, like if you're fighting around a town and you have 2 or 3 commanders there, they will each get a share of the experience that's earned. But it's often hard to get 3 commanders all promoted at the same time. Sometimes just having one around is a more efficient way to get them up to those higher levels.
Right.
Nice. They got a 2
We
extra
just got our
relics.
2 new relics from
Excellent.
converting that, so those were immediately slotted in. Okay.
That's nice. So if they'll automatically slot if you have the slot available.
Yeah.
Yes.
They are generated at that city state, and then the game looks for basically the closest temple,
Right.
and just automatically puts them in there.
So we made our treasure fleet home, and now all it has to be is within our borders here on the coast.
It's right next to the Colossus.
And
It's very appropriate.
We are going to unload cargo, scores treasure fleet points, awards gold, and removes the unit from the game. Let's go ahead and let's check this real quick. We'll see how many points we get.
We are nowhere on the path.
Here we go. This is what I
but
wanted.
notice
So
that
Ashoka already has scored some treasure fleet points. So he's already progressing here, probably on the other side of the continent. He's sailing around the other way.
remember he was on the eastern edge of our continent.
Yeah.
He's probably going to whatever ocean is east of us, and found some islands, or maybe the other side of the Ming Empire, or the empire that Amina has over on that continent.
Yeah, and is definitely already scoring points ahead of us. So we need to start going here. So we got plus 3 points there. So now we're tied with him, and I believe we get some gold here as well. 200 gold, 300 gold.
300.
300.
It's a little small. I'm far away from the screen here.
Should be a multiple of 3 though, because it was 3.
Ah, that makes
Treasure
sense.
fleet
300 gold because 3 points.
Minor Will 1 from chat, by the way, asks, can you capture other Civ's treasure fleets if you're not at war with them?
No.
There is not. That would be a cool special ability for some Civ that was very good at piracy, but we don't have it.
I think that there should be piracy mechanics where you don't have to declare open war with somebody, or maybe you can declare a naval war where only ships can attack each other. I think, and then the other person can escalate it. I think that would be an interesting civilization ability. I do think that I would like to see that angle of gameplay explored more. But so far, what I've seen of the exploration age is mostly positive. There's a couple of disappointing things, but yeah, I'm super excited to play the game.
Anything like that in the game right now.
Oh, an eruption.
Like I said, that volcano just makes keeping that mind operational just nigh on to impossible.
How are you looking at with battle here, Carl?
I'm gonna try. They're still kind of far away. Yeah, we don't have quite enough movement.
Another question from
Almost need to
chat.
pack back up where we had the extra movement.
Yeah, but we don't have the ability to have movement when we unpack,
yeah.
so it would just delay
There's
us.
different commander abilities.
Let's do this. We're gonna come in here and we're gonna purchase another
character.
one.
Yeah.
Can you have enough?
Economic attribute point or gold in all settlements. That seems very good. We're gonna do that.
Dan's Gaming, by the way, asks, can you capture coastal cities with fleets?
You sure that other one was a settlement limit increase though too?
It was an economic point,
Oh, okay.
which is good.
That's good.
But
Yeah.
we'll just go ahead and get the
Could be things
the
like a
automatic
settlement
gold.
point.
Sorry, what was the question?
Can you capture coastal cities with fleets? Is the question.
You can.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Depending. There are caveats to that.
I mean, yeah. So, if you remember the Civ 7 capture rules, towns you're capturing the center hex, but a city can start building walls in more than just the center hex.
Right.
And every walled district has to be captured for the city to flip. So, for instance, if we took one of our cities, like the one we've been looking at, like Madrid, and we built walls into the interior of that, we would increase the
Can the
number of
Carracks
tiles
not
that need to
shoot
be
if they've
captured
moved?
or taken.
I think
Yeah.
that's the issue that's
Those
going on
different
here, is that they're
tiles
basically
need to be
siege
allocated.
units.
But those navigable rivers,
Yes,
maybe they could
yes.
inch up there.
Yeah, so there's lots of interesting interplay there for sure.
So we're not going to get our splash damage here. Actually, this is Xerxes. For the sake of showing off splash damage, let's
Declare war on Xerxes.
declare war on Xerxes.
He was pretty angry with you too, so you could get the formal war there.
I did, yeah. So now we are going to do this and attack this unit. No.
Did you try right-clicking?
Right-clicking removes it.
Well, but you're doing it from the commander. You just
Yeah.
try it with the
Oh, there.
Carrack.
You know what? I wonder if declaring war breaks it. I just ruined it for us.
So try
All right, I'll move forward again.
left-clicking
that's-
the unit,
Yeah.
and then
No, it's all frozen.
Oh, rest in peace.
Build in progress.
Yeah, there's a reason they haven't
build-
given us
build
access
is
to
in
it yet.
progress. And for what we can't get to in this live stream, we will certainly get to in the future. We also have these very, very cool, if you're not already following the Civ socials, some very cool gameplay insights. So definitely check out those. They're very interesting,
go.
and we'll be able to.
We did naval damage.
So look at that! It did happen.
Took them a while, but they got there in the end. I think I've seen enough. It's pretty much the end of the stream. I gotta say, I'm impressed by a lot of the technology and the hard work that's gone into the game. There are certain things that I'm worried about. I would say that my general overview of the Exploration Age is that it is a exciting shakeup to the gameplay. I do have some concerns, but I don't really want to express my concerns just yet. I want to learn more about the game before I really dig into it. I want to get my hands on and play the game. I mean, obviously I'm worried about like the way religion is working. I'm worried about, a lot of my complaints are like small little quibbles that maybe I could get over if the rest of the gameplay is interesting enough, but I'm always going to have my own feelings about things. But yeah, I'm really, really excited for the Exploration Age. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!